website. Recorded meeting will also be available tomorrow on the Channel 9 and the YouTube Scituate community television. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Conley, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Kern. Seeing no more discussion, we'll take a roll call vote. All votes remotely must be taken by roll call.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Ms. Devignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Do we, before we start rolling, we have a very packed agenda, so we're going to try to be as efficient as possible. The board has received all the backup material and is ready to rumble. So before we start, I just wanted to reiterate the thanks to all of the folks who put together the visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus and Frosty this weekend. It took a lot of dedication on our public safety and a bunch of volunteers, and our fearless videographer and head of community television who had to stand at the back of a truck and get whipped around with Santa. So thank you to everyone for doing that. It really gave a boost to the community. So you know who you are. With that, I will invite anyone that would like to Zoom in, walk in. In order to do that, you can go to participants at the bottom of your screen and you raise hand. You can also take your video off and physically wave hand if you'd like. I am scrolling through the participants. I don't see any Zoom-ins or walk-ins. So seeing none, I will ask Mr. Boudreau to give his administrator's report. Please.
I had to unmute. Good evening. Fill you in from yesterday. Last week when I did my Monday report, we had 26 cases of COVID for the previous week. Yesterday morning, I reported that we had 42 cases from Monday last week to yesterday. Yesterday, we had 5 additional cases, and today we had an additional 12 cases. In today's cases, 3 are existing addresses, 9 are new addresses that have not had a case before. So we are definitely seeing the Thanksgiving surge that we have been worried about. Our case numbers are rising based on the numbers that I'm seeing. We will be most likely in the red this week. We are still in the yellow from last Thursday, but our positivity rating was up to 3.11, which was up almost a full point from the previous 14-day period. So I do expect we probably will go into the red on this Thursday's report. We just got to keep reiterating to people, you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine's here, it's being given. The general population is not going to see it until the spring. We will start seeing some of our doctors and nurses who live in town will start getting it. After that, we will see our first responders start getting it. But the general population right now, they're talking March, April at the earliest before the general population gets it. So you need to stay vigilant. You need to wear your mask. You need to wash your hands. If you are traveling out of state, there is a travel restriction when you come back. You are supposed to quarantine or have a test within a certain amount of time when you come back. So please, mass.gov/COVID, you can get all the restrictions on that. We expect the numbers to continue to be high, at least for the foreseeable future, because that surge will take a while to play itself out. So again, people just have to be very vigilant, try to stay in your groups and make sure you mask, wash. And if you don't feel well, get in touch with your physician and go get yourself tested. The governor rolled us back starting Sunday from phase 3, step 2 to phase 3, step 1. Limits the outdoor gatherings back to 25. You can have from 25 to 50, but you need to consult with the Board of Health before then. Indoor theaters and performance venues are closed. In restaurants, if you go to a restaurant now, you must wear your mask until you start eating. Previously, you could sit down and take your mask off, but now the mask must remain on until the food is served and you are eating or drinking. No more than 6 at a table and a 90-minute limit in the restaurant, then you have to go. No music performances at restaurants. And for those of you finishing up your Christmas shopping, the seating at the mall food court will be closed. So we are rolling back. Boston, Somerville, and some of the other cities in the inner core have even rolled back even further. We're just going to continue to monitor at this point and see where we're going. But it doesn't bode well going into the Christmas holiday that our numbers are up that high. Hopefully for the last time, I'll give you this report. The state's drought right now is moderate drought, abnormally dry. The reservoir is now 91% full.
Hey.
So we are almost completely full. Last week, the treatment plant had 375,000 gallons to it, which was down almost 75,000 gallons from the week before. So since we're that high, I don't think I'll give drought updates anymore until we get closer to the watering season in the summer, so I can drop these down about 10 seconds and cover one less subject. The sewer department, as we said yesterday, if you saw the report, the sewer department is having a major problem with the so-called flushable wipes. They're not flushable, despite what the companies tell you. You can flush them into your system. When they get into our system, they get caught in the pumps at the treatment plant, and they cause serious problems for the pumps. The employees are having to take pumps apart and unclog them 2 or 3 times a day because of the amount of wipes that are going into the system. So we have a sign up on the driftway. We're telling you flushable wipes are not flushable. Please do not put them into the system. They cause havoc with our pumps. And just to top everything off, we are expecting our first plowable snow tomorrow night into Thursday. We are right on the line between 5 to 10 inches and 10 to 15 inches. So we're not sure what we're going to get. We do know it will be plowable. We ask people to stay off the roads. The snow's going to start tomorrow night around midnight into Thursday morning. Could be whiteout conditions. It'll be heavy snow in the morning. So please stay off the roads if you don't have to go out so the plows can do their jobs. When you are cleaning your driveways and your walkways, please do not throw the snow back into the streets that we've just cleaned. If you got caught plowing snow into the street, your plow driver can't get a fine for that. So please don't mess up the streets that we're spending a lot of time clearing up. Because of that, we will be removing the outdoor seating barriers at the galley. We had talked to Brian when we put those in and informed him once we have to plow snow, Brian, those are going to have to come out. So I spoke to him yesterday. He appreciates the board's support through all this, understands why they're going to have to come out. So those will be coming out tomorrow morning so we can make sure we can plow Front Street. And then to top it all off with this storm, Thursday afternoon high tide around 1 o'clock is right now projected to be an 11.6 tide, which is a very high tide for us. The winds will be out of the east to northeast, which is the bad winds for us. So we expect minor to moderate flooding and splash over in the low-lying areas. I know yesterday we had to close Cole Parkway for a little while at high tide. So we will see splash over. We will see storm surge in that storm tomorrow. So again, if you don't have to go out, stay home. Let us get everything cleaned up and safe before you go back out. Finally, Cole Parkway and Cedar Point, both those construction projects are proceeding. Cedar Point is moving along. Cole Parkway is expected to start construction right after the holiday. That's what I have.
Thank you, Jim. I muted myself. Does the board have any questions for Jim before we move on? Seeing none. Mr. Goodrich.
Yeah, Jim, a quick question on, I know that the CARES money goes till the end of the year and that's it, and then it's gone. Is there any opportunity, we had some issues yesterday with the Water Resource Committee with some of their technology to hold meetings. They're using like a free conference call. Is there any way that maybe there could be some ways for the end of the year to see if CARES can do something on the technology side for?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they were on free conference call unless Zoom was all being used up for that same period of time, because they can use our Zoom.
There were several other meetings at the same time, that's why.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know what they charge for Google Meets. That's another platform that I've used. But it's right now, it's just everybody's meeting at the same time. So the platform, we only have so many licenses that we can use. We can look at something to help them out though, Andrew.
Okay.
Right, if we can expand the, I don't know if there's a way to expand the number of accounts that we have so that we can facilitate, because we're not going to be meeting anytime soon and it's really becoming a problem. And if we can do that and order it while there's still money in the kitty, that would be a good thing.
I'm not, I can see Nancy, her
Yes.
eyebrows going up. There's not a whole lot of money left in the kitty for Scituate. We have reached our Plymouth County limit at this point. Actually, I think we've gone over a little bit. And we've asked them if they have any additional funds. So, but we'll see what we can do on the Zoom or Google Meets.
Okay. Ms. Karen?
Well, does it make sense for someone to take a look at when everybody's meeting and kind of spread it out? Because it seems like folks tend to like Mondays, right? That seems to be a big night. So I don't know if there's a way, if there's a calendar out there that we can print out and view easily. I'm happy to kind of take a look at it and see if folks can move a little bit.
Everybody should be
flexible.
posting on the
That's
Town
on
of
the town
Scituate
website.
website calendar.
Right, but is there an easy way to export that and print it out? I mean, I don't feel like going through 30 different committees and paging through to figure out how many meet on Mondays. Just wondering if there's a way in which we can export that document.
I've never tried.
They can
Maybe
look at it right online.
Maybe we can ask Seth. Okay.
Okay.
And then, Madam Chair, another question for Jim. I know this is a really weird thing that I'm going to say, but have we ever appealed to our local shop owners with regards to the wipes to advise that, I mean, I know it's counterproductive to sales for them, but I'm just wondering what other type of advisor we can get out there besides just the big memo board, if we can work with our retail partners in the area.
I did get 2 calls about that yesterday saying, is that real? I'm like, yeah, it's real. You can't put wipes in the system. We can talk to them. They brought it to my attention yesterday, so we've just been reporting it, but
Okay.
we can talk to them. Maybe Village Market or somebody could put a sign up next to them. Please don't flush these down the toilet or something.
Something, you know, Shaw's, just all our local partners, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
and
thought-
Lorraine had a great suggestion about drafting a press release and like actually making, trying to do a little promotion about this, because it's taken out 2 pumps over the last, month? Yes, Mr. Goodrich?
I mean, could we put a dollar value to that? I mean, I think people might respond, it's cost the town $20,000. So knock it up to your money, your tax dollars. People might.
Okay. All right, we'll draft something tomorrow. I think that's it was a good suggestion. And then maybe reach out to the grocery stores. They all have signs saying 1 per customer. Let's add another sign.
Yeah.
I
Also,
do-
at the transfer station's a good spot.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. There is a hand raised. Is there anything the board, any other questions from the board to Jim? Okay. Then I will see what, I will invite, let's see. Ask Tony, the Cedrones.
Cedrone, hi, Dave Cedrone here,
Hi.
WATD.
Oh, hi. Sorry.
I just want to let you know, I'm going to focus my story on that and the COVID numbers. So the flushable wipes. So you got me, you got your press on that one.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right.
Most important things, COVID and wipes. I love it.
Yeah, I guess so. The big storm too. Thank you.
Oh, and that.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate the support.
Bye-bye.
Okay, does that conclude our town administrator report? I believe it does. We do have a packed agenda. I remind you, the first item on our schedule is for a discussed vote of a very generous donation to the senior center. And I believe that JD Miller, the chair of Accounts on Aging, and Linda Hayes are, there's one. I don't know if JD's, yep, JD's here too. It's John Miller. If we can invite John as well.
Can be there.
I saw him.
Hi, Linda, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I am here.
Well,
And I know JD is joining me. There he is.
there's JD, and we get to talk to you a little bit later too. Oh, no, we don't tonight. Okay. Can tell us about this great donation. So exciting.
Well, I'm happy to be able to be here to officially accept the $10,000 donation being made from the Scituate Rotary Club to the new senior center construction toward the project, and specifically to support the bocce court that is being added to the site. So the Rotary Club's always been very good to us, to the senior center, really making annual donations to our outreach and emergency gift funds. They've also assisted with our sand bucket campaign, kind of a mutual endeavor on our parts. Their students at the high school, the Interact Club that JD coordinates has been our tech time, student volunteers and also delivered the sand buckets for us. So I don't know what you would like to add, JD, about your donation, but please feel free.
Oh,
Oh,
you're muted, JD.
Oh, he is still muted.
There you go.
Well, on behalf of the Scituate Rotary Club and the Scituate Rotary Foundation, we're extremely pleased, happy, thrilled to be able to provide some funding for the town, for the senior center. We anticipate a very nice community location over by adjacent to the senior center for a bocce court, which we anticipate will encourage the entire community to use, young, old, and everybody in between. So we're very pleased to be able to help and have something fun for people to do.
Excellent. And I propose that the select board put together a team for the first tournament.
You're on.
Yes.
Thank you so much, board. I know we all want to just say thank you. It's very generous. It's going to be a great asset to that site, and in
Yep.
sort of in the whole keeping of using that as a community resource. So thank you so much. Would anyone from the board like to add any comments? Nancy?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And where's it gonna go on the property?
The bocce court is being constructed to really between the building where you can see the back of the building and the patio that's been laid out and the stone wall. So it's actually on that front end, but toward the green, toward the middle of the green.
Oh, good. Great.
Very visible, actually.
No crosswind. Perfect.
So you'll always know when we're playing.
That's great. Thank you.
That's great.
Well, our
Thank you.
pleasure. We're happy to
Yeah.
continue our participation and engagement with town of Scituate. So
Right.
very pleased about this.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen accept the donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Scituate Rotary Club to the Scituate Council on Aging toward the cost of construction of the bocce court at the site of the new senior center at 333 First Parish Road.
Moved by Ms. Kern. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Ms. Connolly. No further discussion. We will have a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0. Thank you again. Looking
Okay.
forward to getting out there.
All
Pleasure.
right.
Thank you.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Great.
Bye.
Night.
Good night.
We will move on. We have one interview today, although we've pretty much finished our boards and committee interviews. We had Kelly Bauer has raised her hand for a couple of committees, and there you are. And we're going to unmute you. And there you go. Hi, Kelly.
Hello.
Thank you so much. So you have applied for several committees, some of which are not available, but Beautification and Beach Commission have openings. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the board and telling us why those committees are of interest to you, that'd be great.
Hello, my name's Kelly Bauer. I'm at 20 Edgar Road in Scituate. I'm interested in doing whatever I can really to help the environment in general and Scituate specifically. And one thing that's of real interest to me is keeping the beaches clean, keeping anything I can out of the water. I've been myself going out and picking up a lot of stuff off the beaches, and I'd love to be able to, maybe organize people to help with that as part of this. That's one thing that interests me about the Beach Commission. My other interests are, animals, plants, and all of this ties into that for me. I'm a gardener. I'd love to be able to help with the islands, planting the islands. Just whatever I can to make it better here. I'm interested. I checked several committees because I wasn't sure what you had open. I wasn't sure how your process worked. So, yeah.
Well, there's a couple of standard questions we ask everyone, and one is, have you had a chance to speak to anyone on the committees or find out, sort of where they are in their committee work? And the other question is, how long have you been in town, and have you been involved in any other volunteer group in town?
Sure. Well, first of all, I haven't had the good fortune to speak with anybody on the committee yet. Lorraine had forwarded a question of mine to Stephen Tripp, but I was not yet in touch with him. I moved to Scituate officially in 2012. I started dating someone here in 1998, and that's when I started coming around town. And then you had one last part to that question.
If you were familiar with what the the priorities for each of the groups were right now. Like,
I've read the specifications as sent by Lorraine for each of the committees, commissions rather. So I have some familiarity with them.
Great. I'd like to open it up to the board. If you have any questions for Kelly. Looking at all the little boxes here. Okay. I think,
I think Andrew was first.
Oh.
Well, the other kind of standard question, just about kind of your connection to Scituate and other kind of areas around town, and how just kind of your general kind of connection to Scituate. It's usually
Sure. That was the last part of her question I'd forgotten, and that's if I'd been able to volunteer here. And I haven't within Scituate. I volunteer at Holly Hill Farm in Cohasset currently. Mostly I've just spent my time working, and I hadn't a lot of extra time to volunteer between working and commuting and attending to home. But, that's opening up some.
Yeah, things have changed. Our volunteer pool has really increased, which we appreciate too. People using their time to help the town. Great. Maura, did you have an additional question?
Just a comment, Kelly, thanks for coming forward, and the commission's done a lot of great work to date, so I think you'll find that you can be very helpful there as well to move along any beach initiatives. But I also wanted to let you know that you don't have to be on the beautification commission in order to work on any of the islands. They're always looking for volunteers to adopt a lot and take care of one. So please feel free to reach out to them and get on their volunteer list too, because they're always looking for some avid gardeners to help.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good to know.
And thanks for coming forward.
Of course.
If there aren't any further questions, what we typically do is we complete the interviews, and then at the end of the meeting, we review and do appointments. So you're welcome to stay up late with us, because it's going to be a long meeting, or you can wait and Lorraine can let you know how things go later in the evening.
I'm planning to listen in, so thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Our next item on our agenda is to update, discuss, and vote the housing production plan. So we'll invite Karen Joseph, who is our town planner, to join us. Sorry, got distracted there. It is a lengthy process that I'm sure Karen can give us the background for, and quite an extensive document. Anybody count the pages? I've forgotten how many pages.
Hundreds.
Hundreds of pages. And the intent is Karen on?
Yep, I'm right here. I'm ready.
Oh, you're there. You're hiding on the non-video. Okay.
Yeah, right. I don't have a camera on my desktop. So good evening. The existing housing production plan that was approved in 2015 expired on 8/4/2020. The town needs a new plan to be in conformance with state law. Karen Sonnenborg, our consultant paid for by the Affordable Housing Trust, has prepared a new plan. She also prepared the last two plans. And we're asking for the select board to approve the plan so that it could be submitted to the state for approval. The town currently has 358 units on the subsidized housing inventory, or 5%. 10% is the number the state has determined that must be achieved per each community. The planning board voted to approve the plan at their meeting on December 10th with a letter submitted to the select board, including that infrastructure needs of the town need to be addressed in order to realize the town's goals. The infrastructure needs are not listed on the summary of housing strategies, but need to be factored in. The plan does outline in section 1.4.1 capacity building strategies that include gaining access to greater resources, both financial and technical, and planning for extension of infrastructure in areas appropriate for greater density, particularly water and sewer. Section 4 of the plan also identifies challenges to producing affordable housing, including sewer and water infrastructure. Currently, housing development with 7 or fewer units is exempt from having to do affordable housing in Scituate. The planning board is looking to change this in the future for the spring 2021 town meeting, and the housing production plan lists this as a goal. We will have affordable units with some of the new development in Greenbush, their local action units, and ultimately in North Scituate too, when North Scituate redevelopment comes with new zoning and new sewer. That's kind of the short and skinny of the housing production plan. It lists strategies that are prioritized between high priority and ones that can last over several years. The plan is good after the state approves it for 5 years.
Thank you, Karen. That was a great summary of a very lengthy and thoughtful document. You know, I had a couple of questions, but I wanted to invite the rest of the board to go first, if they'd like to have any questions about the housing plan. I mean, obviously the overriding concerns has to do with providing the infrastructure on which everything depends. So that's you know, that's a whole separate conversation from the housing production plan. But as you point out, and as the planning board pointed out, that's the linchpin to the whole thing. Does the board have any questions for Karen? Ms. Conley?
Yeah, a question about the 2015 plan. Is there a summary? I didn't quite see it. Maybe it's in there somewhere because it is a long document of what progress we have made since that point to date.
I'm not sure I mean, she tried in the housing production plan for 2020 updates kind of where some of the projects that have proceeded. Lawson Green is a new project that is on the subsidized housing inventory. We have got several units, 50 Country Way, that was back in the planning stages in 2015, that we got 4 local action units out of that. We've been able to go back and update all of the back 40Bs except for Walden Woods. Herringbrook Meadow and Stockbridge Landing currently cannot be included on the subsidized housing inventory because it's been too long since their approval and when they got building permits and ultimately when they get occupancy permits. So we can't put those on the housing production plan until we get occupancy permits for those.
But they will be eligible once that is done.
Once that is done, yes.
Yeah.
We'll
So yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is that this 10% seems to be a difficult number to achieve because it seems like the more you build, unless you build, 100% affordable, you just keep chasing. And I guess I'm just wondering, have we nudged that percentage up since 2014, 2015, or are we kind of same place?
No, we've come up since 2015. I mean, we've had 36 units in the past year with Lawson Green and six other units, but 10% is a significantly high number. Yeah. And the only way you're going to get a project that gets all the units on is if it's all rental, and neither Stockbridge Landing or Herringbrook Meadow are rental. Rental units all count.
All right. Even if they're not affordable?
Yes, even if they're not affordable.
Oh,
So
If
Karen,
they're
under,
under,
under
if they're under a
40B,
40B, if they're under a 40B, if they're approved under a 40B, then 100% of the rental units count. Otherwise, they're not counted on the subsidized housing inventory.
so Karen, if you do a 40B, if it's 100 condos, 25% must be available, so you get 25 available units, but 100 new units.
Right,
If you do 100 apartments, 25% must be available, but all 100 count towards your affordable number.
right. If
So it's-
they're rental units.
If they're rental. So as Karen Joseph said, the only way to really make progress towards a number is to do rental.
So we need more
But that,
rentals.
but we have that huge rental project behind the town forest that's 240 units.
Potentially that's
Right.
sitting there. There's been no action on it. They haven't
Right.
filed anything. If that goes forward, that will get us very close to our 10%.
Right.
And one of the issues with rental units, when you do condos, you build a couple, you sell a couple, you build a couple, you sell a couple. Apartment projects generally tend to have to be large projects because they got to build big to get their money back because they're laying all the cash out up front.
Well, that's what the plan has been, with all these other ones that are popping up and with that very, very large one that's off 3A, that gets us very, very close to the 10%.
Very close, yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Karen, if I could just piggyback on that, is that in the plan at all? These proposed projects that aren't at really that stage of
Yeah,
development yet?
she identifies some of the projects that have been conveyed that might be in the works. And this Bartlett Field is kind of mentioned, but it's been around for a while now. There's no project eligibility letter. So she does put, I don't remember exactly where in the plan, some tables to say, here are some projects that we've been told about that potentially could get us up there. We also
Right.
know that when we have any of the new zoning in Greenbush and ultimately North Situate, that if they go and develop in a density bonus, they have to do, if they're above a certain number of units, they have to do affordable units. So like Drew Company will have to give us 12 affordable units.
Right. Right. And of course, the plan isn't only about the 40B component of it.
No, right. It's
as-
about other ways to try to get something that's affordable, but not all affordable housing is on the subsidized housing inventory. For instance, Scituate allows accessory dwellings. Now, your accessory dwellings are basically a variety of affordable housing. There are another housing means, but they're not eligible for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is that just by state mandate? Because that has the greatest potential in our
Has
community.
to be a
really.
deed restriction to count.
It's a deed restriction.
And it has to be for accessory dwellings, you have to develop them through the local action program. And for one unit, it's a real lot of paperwork. And we only have one project in town, and that's maybe 15 to 20 years old that has taken advantage of affordable accessory dwelling.
Okay. Well, that answered my question. We will have the North Situate zoning overlay. It's right now, well, to get to that later tonight about it's warrant for April. It's been postponed and ready to go, but that is part of this work, is to basically lay the groundwork so that should sewer become available, we've got the zoning in place in which we can start making some headway into the housing production. Is that accurate, Karen?
Yes, I mean, you'll get some affordable units with any type of redevelopment in North Situate. With 7, right now the bylaw is written so if they have 7 or fewer units, they don't need to have affordable units. But the planning board is looking to change that to probably 5 or fewer units, so that if you have developed 6 units, you need to have inclusionary, an affordable unit. And that's recommended in the housing production plan as a strategy for one of their strategies.
Karen, is that a bylaw change that has to happen for that?
Yes, that would be a bylaw change.
Yep. And we will get to that later tonight when we talk about the warrant a little bit. Great. A ton of work. Thank you, Karen, and to your folks too for doing it and getting it together. It really is interesting. It's a great document to have for exactly that, for making the changes that need to be done to accommodate growth down the road. So are there any other questions from the board about the housing production plan? Ms. Curran and then Mr. Goodrich.
I just want to say thank you, and I want to thank the Affordable Housing Trust Commission because they went through this document with a pretty fine-tooth comb and really provided some feedback to Karen Sonnenberg as well. So they were really involved in it. So I just wanted to call them out as well. They did a nice job. And there's also a piece in here that I think folks should read into, which is also rental assistance, which is a part of it, which the Affordable Housing Trust is also working through. They were actually in front of CPC last night, putting together a program so we can provide some assistance to our residents who are having challenges, obviously because of COVID and unemployment, to help them meet some of their rental or mortgage payments. So that'll be coming forward too, but it's also a part, it's in here as well. So thank you, Karen, to you and the planning board as well for working with the Affordable Housing Trust on this.
You're welcome.
Mr. Goodrich?
I mean, yeah, first of all, I mean, the yeoman's work done, it's wonderful. I certainly do appreciate it. I guess this is more of a general question. Since this is so infrastructure related and tied in for some of these projects, and we haven't seen the final tie and bond study with some of that, I just don't want the two to totally conflict. If once, oh, we definitely can or can't do that, yet we have this plan going out there. And I guess that's more of a general question, if there's a risk that we could have conflicting priorities. I don't know. I
think we might have to flip that to Jim because I think it's a roadmap.
Yeah, what the housing production plan is just what it says. It's a plan. It's how you would get to your affordable housing number. One of the things it does is if you can produce a certain percentage of units within a 1-year time frame, then you get a safe harbor from a 40B, even though you're not at your 10%. So it's really more of a roadmap, whereas the water study is going to be giving you, this is the water situation in town. So one can guide the other, but they're not going to be in conflict, Andrew, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I just didn't want one to be, okay, that's fine.
Good question. Ms. Conley, are you adjusting your computer or did you raise your hand?
No, I was trying to mute myself, but I didn't.
Okay. Are there any other, excuse me, questions from the board concerning the housing production plan? All right, I will ask if there's anyone participating any resident participating that would like to make a comment about the housing production plan. If you do, go to the participants icon and raise hand, or on video or video yourself. Looking through, I do not see any hands raised. So I believe we need a motion to accept this as well. Would someone like to do so?
Move to approve the 2020 Town of Scituate Housing Production Plan prepared by consultant Karen Sonnerborg and forwarded to the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development for their approval.
Moved by Mr. Vignani. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Kern. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, this vote requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes,
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great. The motion carries 5-0. Again, Karen, please let the planning board know that we appreciate all their work and our consultant and the Affordable Housing Trust as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You
Good night,
too.
Karen.
happy holidays.
You too.
Oh yeah, there's that, huh?
Yeah.
Great. Well, that will bring us to our 7:15 discussion vote of a memorandum of agreement contract for Dispatchers Services Employees International Union, SEIU. We have Robert Clark, our Human Resources Director. Oh, there you are in the corner. Would you please give the highlights of this contract and for the board?
Sure. So the town has entered into a memorandum of agreement with the SEIU Tosca Unit B bargaining unit. So the Unit B bargaining unit basically represents consists of the communication specialist with the town, communication specialist being the 911 operators. So you'll recall that in October, we presented an MOA for the Tosca bargaining unit. And this MOA basically reflects that MOA. So in essence, it's the same document. You may recall at that time that we had the last collective bargaining agreement we had with Tosca expired on June 30th, 2020. And so we had begun negotiations for a 3-year contract earlier in the year. And then when COVID struck, we suspended negotiations. So this summer, the union reached out to us and basically asked if we would be willing to negotiate a 1-year contract to basically get us through FY21. And then in the new year, we would begin negotiations for a new 3-year contract. So we did do that. We ultimately agreed on a 1.5% COLA. The MOA consists of the 1.5% COLA in addition to a number of other tentative agreements that we had agreed to very early on in the bargaining process. The other tentative agreements were, a lot of them were just basically housekeeping items. They were, we had added some recognition clauses and, and clean up some old outdated language. But the only real substantive addition to this MOA is the 1.5% increase. And that's actually the same amount that we've already agreed to. We did an MOA with both Tosca and with AMPS for 1.5%. It just took a little longer to get this particular MOA ratified by the members. So we're presenting that and asking for the board's approval and signature on that.
Okay, thanks, Bob. So we do have a red line copy of this document. It's a 1-year, it goes till June 30th, 2021. I assume that the references to the library are removed because they're just not relevant to this contract. It's pretty straightforward. Does the board have any question? Thank you for doing that work. And it's been an odd year to have to try to move things like this forward. So thank you for finding a resolution that'll get us through the year. Does the board have any questions about this contract or the strategy, Mr. Vignani?
Yeah, Bob, just one quick question. What are the bold figures in here? Did we, under section 5, did we add a step 8?
On section 5?
Article 14.
Article 14.
I don't see that. So what I have on section 5 is.
I see it. Tony, it wasn't clear when you actually got that step. So what we did is clarify when you got the step.
So step 8 was always available or no?
I believe it. Well, we already had a step 8 in. I think that was the last contract.
But so the clarifying language is the old language basically said it talked about someone being qualifying for the max step, and so we had to clarify that placement at step 7 instead of the max step. It had to be at step 7, consisted of being and at step 6 for 1 year. We had added a step 8 the last collective bargaining agreement. But there were some issues with the language. So we really just had to clarify when someone was eligible for step 8. But that had been actually done in the last collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so the only changes are the mark out of the red.
Right.
The bold is what went in on the last contract.
Right. So anything that has a strike through and is in red is removed. Anything that's in bold is new language.
So step 8 is new language.
No, well, just the one sentence that says in order to qualify for placement at step 8, that's new language. The step 8
Step 8 already existed, Tony. We just had to clarify when you got step 8 because it wasn't clear in the old contract.
Well, the old contract that wasn't bold said 10 years, which was 7. where was 8 in there before?
Right, but that's, the steps are in the wages at the end.
Right.
So there was a step 8, but it wasn't clear when you go to step 8.
So that's just not part of this document?
Yeah, you don't have, you don't have the actual wage scale that's attached there. We do the wage, when this is done, we'll update the wage scale and attach it to the end of the contract. So people look at it and say, step 1 is X dollars an hour.
So previously there was an attachment, a schedule at the end of the contract. And under step 8, it said, you know, it said 10-year step, but that's all it said. There was a reference to 10 years. So we really, again, this is just looking to clarify existing language. And it's just to make it clear for the members that because there was never narrative within the actual article itself, which basically clarified that you had to have a certain number of years of time with the town before you're eligible. It was just only a minor reference in the attached salary schedule. So this is just looking to clarify existing language. So it's not new in any way. It's just clarifying when someone becomes eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Are there any other questions about this contract? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. If someone would like to make one.
Move to approve the collective bargaining memorandum of agreement for SEIU Local 888 Tosca Unit B, Communication Specialist Bargaining Unit.
Moved by Ms. Connolly. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Goodrich. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Bob and Jim, for your work on this. And good luck soon getting it started on the next round. I hope Jim's muted because I can hear the sighing. 7, we will move on to our 7:20. I see our fire chief in the I think the one of the Brady boxes. There you are. We are to discuss and vote again the Hummerock Fire Station contract, as well as the construction contract, and to discuss assigning Hummerock Fire Station Replacement Project Administration to the Public Building Commission. So Chief, if you wouldn't mind bringing us up to speed on where we are, and are we ready to go on this?
We're ready to go. So the shortfall right now after the town meeting, special town meeting, was $171,299, $171,299. So that's what Jim and Nancy, after meeting with them, we found that was a shortfall to move forward on the project to award the contract to Tower Construction from Rhode Island for $1,294 thousand. So they were able to find that in various places. I applaud their efforts for that. So if that's approved by the select board, then at that, we would move forward to award Tower Construction of Rhode Island the contract to construct the entire project. It's not split up anymore. It's one entire project. And the project would likely start construction at the site in about April 1st. And there's 2 reasons for that. One reason that if we are looking to get an apparatus bay that's pre-manufactured. That's going to take about 3 months to build internally. And they were able to come out to the site probably in March or April to erect that. It's very similar to the brewery down in Greenbush. Chick Fagan built that. Speaks very highly, but we like the building. We've gone out there and done several site visits. So that's the type that, for that reason, and also to relocate the firefighters, we have an agreement with the Fourth Cliff Rec Base to house our firefighters up there starting April 1st for the duration of the construction project. And so we'd have to also provide some type of coverage for the fire truck. And it would be a lot easier to do that with the winds of April, May, June, and July than the winds of January, February, and March. So that's the timeline we're trying to move forward with. Tower Construction is a company who had the low bid, and Coastal Engineering also has a contract for the oversight of the project for $50,000. And the last part of this request is, if approved, we would actually transfer this project to the Public Building Commission.
All right, thanks, Chief. So the bids, we have there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bids. They ranged, the low was Tower at 1,294, the high being 193. and they're sort of spaced out in between. I'm sorry, did you say that the shortfall was 174? I thought it was 140. Did I do the math wrong?
I have 171, 299, and that's what's in the, that's
the additional costs. And the delta that we have to make up is the 140.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. So
So
the
you're
delta,
both,
yeah, so the delta is 140, and those funds are being found in facilities, technical services, fire operational, and DPW. Not crazy about taking 100 grand out of DPW, but town administrator advises that, you know, we could reject this and go back to town meeting for the additional funding. But we run the risk of the next bid not being as competitive as people come out of hiding from the pandemic. So I would like to open this up to questions from the board.
On the money from the DPW, half of that, and Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, but half of that is needed to complete the project. The other half would be our contingency. So we might not need all those funds.
All right, so that would be the last pile that would be,
That'll be the last pile we'd go into, yes.
okay. Oh, and the other question I had, Chief, was there's an add alt 1 and 2. What are those? Because obviously they're not.
Okay, the first add alternate is the handicap ramp. We have a commitment from the VOTEC, Social VOTEC, to build the ramp for us. And the materials cost is built into the project itself, that the additional funds that we need. So they gave us a commitment. I did check with them, confirm with them when this came out, and what they're hoping to do is make it that first project starting September of 21. And this project is anticipated to be completed sometime in August of 21. So that lines up very well for us. And that second one is just some site work, some parking lot work. They're going to leave the project basically level. They're going to level all the landscaping out. So sort of finishing touches in the landscaping. That was the other alternate that we feel we can do internally.
Okay, well, obviously you can't get an occupancy permit without the handicap accessibility, so.
We could get a temporary one if it's a few weeks away. So we've discussed this with Bob Vogel, but so we're trying to, if possible, if this project moves along quicker, maybe they can do it as a last project in the spring. But with a lot of the anticipation of who gets the vaccine, when it is, so it's more likely going to be the first project in September. But it almost lines up with probably a mid-August completion.
So I have to ask Nancy and Jim, worst case scenario, if we approve this as is, and for some reason that work isn't donated, we've got another $34,000 requirement. That's not a nice to have, that's a have to have.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, we could do a handicap accessibility that is not as expensive as the one that's part of the project.
Okay. All right. Does the board have any other questions for Chief Murphy or Jim or Nancy? Ms. Curran?
So I'm not really thrilled about taking $100,000 out of our roads and seawalls, to be honest with you, as much as I want this project to move forward. Why aren't we taking it out of free cash or somewhere else to supplement? Because, I mean, we're always scraping the bottom of the barrel to get our roads paved, and obviously with storms this winter with seawall repair, I just don't think that's the appropriate use for this.
Then we would have to postpone the project, to rebid it and do it in the spring and appropriate more money at town meeting.
Why couldn't you allocate from free cash?
Free cash takes a town meeting vote to allocate.
Wait, one at a time. Sorry, Nancy?
Town meeting takes free cash takes a town meeting vote to spend.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for that.
Great.
Well, then I would do this if we make sure that in town meeting, if this is used in 2021, that we pay that back. And keep that in mind, because I don't think our roads can support $100,000 less.
I think part of the justification, Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, is this is part of, foreshore protection money for the DPW. And part of this whole project is to make it resilient and raising it up.
I understand.
Site work in extensive foundations it needs to raise up to meet FEMA requirements. So it might meet the mold, but just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. We understand the purpose and the need of this. It's just the funding, it's the financing. So Jim, can we do that? Can we request that, you know, when appropriate to bring to town meeting, if we have a shortfall, we can replenish DPW, or is that just part of
You
that?
can always put money in a special town meeting. You can't take it out of free cash. I don't know, we have free cash at that point, so we would have free cash.
And these funds close out as of June 30th anyways.
Right.
You could always just have a separate article if you wanted for additional road money, and that article wouldn't close out.
Okay.
All right, I just want to make sure we keep it on our radar because I don't want that $100,000 not to be
One of the things
replaced.
we've also talked about more is right now our financial projections include a reduction in local aid for next fiscal year. And if we change that prediction, then my recommendation would be we're not hiring any people. That money is going to go into roads, seawalls, and facilities.
Great. Ms. Connolly?
Yeah, Nancy, I guess, would this additional financing run afoul of any of the financial, et cetera, policies that we've been trying to adopt? It just seems to me as though, would we be able to do that if we adopted all the new policies?
Yeah, I don't think it would run afoul of anything. The problem with this is the timing. If it was any other time of the year, we could do something else. If we were closer to a town meeting, or if we had just said $100,000 more when we went to this special, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If it was May, we could do a year-end transfer and go to several other different budgets. It's just the timing is horrible. There aren't any little caches of funds that we can apply to it. It is what it is. It's not a pleasant way to fund a project. So that's why it's up to the board's, basic discretion and wisdom whether or not they want to move it forward or if they want to hold it. I mean,
Well, but I'm not trying to be argumentative, but it just seems to me as though if we can always say, well, but this is different, or well, the timing was lousy. I think I have the same opinion that of the other board members have expressed is that this project needs to get done. And we all understand that it's taken a long time to get there. But when I saw money coming out of other budgets, I thought to myself, well, how does this work if we're under all of these constraints that we're looking at putting ourselves under with all these new financial and budgetary policies, that it's just sort of like, but if it's not convenient, we're not going to do it. So it's just an overall philosophy.
I mean, the discussion back when we first had the discussions at town meeting, before town meeting, was to see if we could find funds to get this project to completion. These are the funds that we were able to come up with. We were also able to, there was some technology money in this project that we are actually covering through the technology budget for phones and things because we appropriated money in another bucket to do those.
Yeah.
So we don't have to use the money in this budget to do that.
Understand.
So these are the only funds that we could come up with to complete this project to go forward now. If the board is not comfortable, as Nancy said, if the board is not comfortable using these sources, then you'd have to wait until town meeting. We'd have to reject the bids, go back out to bid. I think it would come back in more expensive. How much more expensive? I couldn't tell you. But this is the option that we can put forward to you at this time before we have to make a decision whether to reject or accept the bid and move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Vignani?
Hi. I agree with everybody else in the fact that we have to get this project done. These, Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are for what fiscal year budget? This is the current fiscal year budget.
Yep.
Yeah, so those funds are going to go to free cash anyways. The $100,000 is actually override money from 2000 and whatever. When we allocated that override money to the seawalls and to the roads. So we've been putting a lot of extra money in those things for many, many years. And as somebody mentioned, most of that is to cover a contingency. I think the one thing that we might be able to come out of this is maybe, Chief, next year some money could come out of the fire department budget. There could be some savings over the year to get money to go to free cash that would kind of make up any shortfall here as well that the other departments have filled in on. So, maybe
And as Nancy said, Tony, just along your line, if we get to the Springtown meeting and we want to transfer more money or put more money in roads and seawalls or do it, and Chief Murphy's budget is flush, for lack of a better term, I don't think it will be, but if we have a very good winter in terms of injuries and overtime and things like that, you could take the money out of his budget to replace what we put into this project.
Right. So that's where I was going. And it's all kind of wait and see where the project comes in anyway. So.
Right. We wanted to be careful. We want to take the money out of the fire department budget and say, oh, we'll use 25,000 out of the fire department budget, knowing in the spring we'd have to put 20 of it back.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Okay. Well, let's keep apprised of the project as it goes along and see where it's coming in. Hopefully we won't have to go into that contingency too much. And like you said, maybe the chief will have a good year and have a little bit of money to put in free cash that could cover it also.
And we know we have some money in the DPW budget and summer help that wasn't used last summer. That again, town meeting would have to transfer, but we could transfer that or use that with town meeting approval for something else in the spring.
Right. So most of this is essentially free cash anyways.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Well, no, for this year. I mean, clearly you wouldn't be taking it out if you thought that the facilities budget was going to be over budget.
Right. No, we wouldn't. And again, one of the things I've said it a couple of times, that there's one silver lining of COVID. The school HVAC systems have never been in better shape than they are right now. We were able to do a tremendous amount of work that would have come out of facilities to repair some of those things out of COVID. So, Nancy and I are as confident, I guess, as we could be that barring some unforeseen holy crap to a building, we'll be fine with transferring this money.
Great. Thank you.
All right, before I know Mr. Noyes is going to want to chime in, but before we go to him, so before us is the contract as presented. So Chief, so if we approve this today, if I heard you correctly, they're really not going to operationally start until April, but they're going to get the prefabs done and everything over the winter?
Yeah, so they have to move forward with that contract and move forward with the apparatus bay would have to be started. Say we sign the contract next week, they would get the contract out to whoever they award the contract to get the apparatus bay done. Going now probably takes 3 months construction. We did contact them, and that's about the information we got back. So we're looking approximately a late March, early April construction start.
I mean, we have to wait until the really cold weather's over, because the truck is not going to be in a heated facility. Once we take it out of the building, it's going to be in a temporary facility. We can't leave it out like that, or we're going to have to worry about freeze up. So that's one of the reasons it's not starting until the nicer weather.
Okay, and the coastal engineering, Ms. Curran, you're next, but coastal engineering didn't need to be bid, or is that just because
Engineering is exempt?
It's exempt. Okay, thank you. Ms. Curran?
Just one last question. Once all those pieces arrive, how long does it take to put them together, Chief?
The Untold Brewery down in Greenbush is about twice the size. They put that together in 3 weeks. So still, it's prefabricated, built inside, brought to the site. But also after that, you do your electrical, you do your plumbing, you do your fire protection. So it's going to take some time after that. But the building itself goes up fairly quick. And then the living quarters is going to be stick built. So the foundations will be poured all at the same time. That's the first part. The site work, the underground tanks. They'll bring the apparatus bay down, erect that, and right next to it, they'll be building the stick-built living.
So by the end of next summer, we should probably see it completed?
Yep.
I believe so, in August,
Okay.
yes.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Then Mr. Noyes has been very patient. We will ask you to unmute and invite you to address the board. You have to please state your name and address officially for the record.
Peter Noyes, 35 Cliff Road South, right over here beside the pilot program, the Fort Cliff Hanscom Air Force Base. I'm impressed. I never thought you'd do it because you had I thought it was a bigger shortfall after talking to the chief prior to town meeting. I wish the moderator was here, but I don't see him. But the moderator felt that it could come out of free cash, or maybe Nancy Holt said that. But my simple clarification, without going into the details, is the $171,299 that came out of what Mr. Boudreau calls the kitty. Did any of that come from free cash?
No,
No. Do you agree with that, Mr. Vignani? I thought, did I misunderstand what you said a minute ago?
My point was, if those are coming from budgets that they're expecting there to be excess, a shortfall, not a shortfall in terms of a benefit, they're not going to use all their budget. And essentially that would flush to free cash at the end of the year anyways.
Had it not been spent.
But that term, I guess, I think maybe it's just semantics. That so-called free cash line item that Nancy Holt controls can only be diverted back to Chief Murphy with town meeting. Is that what I got?
No, so free cash is basically a town certified surplus at the end of the year. And then the only way that can be spent is by having a town meeting vote to spend it. What Mr. Vignani is saying is money that's left at the end of the year becomes part of our free cash going forward. So at the end of this year, when we close our books, and I'm really simplifying this, if we have money left over, it becomes free cash. So what Mr. Vignani is saying, the money that we're using on this project, because it wasn't going to be used for something else, would have eventually become free cash, would have been left over at the end of the year.
Okay, so, but
it's not free cash.
Did you already vote to award the contract? Did you vote to award the contract, or we already?
No, don't talk him out of it, Peter. Just don't talk him out of it.
I know, that would be a fool's game, because the thing I'm most impressed by is that regardless of all of these, I mean, I'm sensing tension between Mr. Vignani and Chief Murphy, but maybe I'm misunderstanding it. But my understanding is that when you address this award tonight, the money is not, it exists. It's not some maybe kitty. It really does exist. It's not the kind of maybe we talked about at town meeting. It really is real money.
Right.
Okay, so that's whatever, I don't need to know all the details, but, and then you've got a contingency fund. I don't need to know the details of that, whether you use Vertex or Joe Anise or whoever. Joe DeVito is going to help you, I guess. But the simple question for the chief maybe is that part of that money that Mr. Boudreau calls the kitty, and the kitty's not free cash. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the kitty that found the $171,299, if I heard somebody's explanation, some of that money is coming out of Chief Murphy or the Scituate Fire Department of Public Safety's operational budget.
Correct.
How much of that is coming out of the operational budget to address this $171,299?
$5,000.
Say that again?
$5,000.
Okay, and what is that, Chief Murphy?
That's going to be used to buy the supplies for the handicap ramp. And the vote is going to build it.
Now he wants to know where it's coming out of your budget.
No, that doesn't matter. That's I thought it might have been more, and then you guys have a union fight or whatever. But the other question is, and this, I guess this is now my own backyard, and obviously there's been fires right here on Fourth Cliff, and the men are going to stay in the cabins at Hanscom Air Force Base, Fourth Cliff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And where is the apparatus going to be?
We're going to erect a temporary sort of garage canopy that's going to be erected in April 1st. So we're working on that type. I've met with a contractor today to get some ideas, and I gave him the cost, and he said we should be able to put something together. So, and 2 reasons we're doing it in April, 3 reasons: the erection of the building of the apparatus bay, but also to withstand the winds of the spring and the summer instead of the winter, and also due to lack of freeze. We don't want the truck to freeze. So that's why we're starting this basically an April 1st project.
So, but if I understand correctly, because I jog by there and talk to the guys on occasion, but I haven't done that in a while. But without going into their personal stuff they do over there, but it's my understanding now that some of them sleep in the trucks because of a lack of space over there. But in April, when this project breaks ground, nobody's sleeping in the trucks. They'll all be sleeping at Fourth Cliff.
Correct. We have an MOU with the Air Force Rec Base to do that.
And what's an MOU?
Member of Understanding. And Mr. Noyes, we are gonna have to move along to a vote pretty soon.
I have one more question then. How much money are we paying Fourth Cliff, or could we ask them to pay us for serving them? Program. Mr. DeVito, payment in lieu of taxes, have they ever made a payment in lieu of taxes?
Mr. Noyes, I just have to say that those finances are outside of the project that we're debating and voting tonight.
I have one more question.
I will allow one more question, but we really do have to stay on task because we're already 3 minutes, oh no, we're 13 minutes past on our schedule.
I won't even stay for the vote. One more question though, and it's related to funding, but the Title V septic system for the new station, has that been reviewed by the Board of Health? Or will it be reviewed by the Board of Health? I don't want to get into too many details, but.
It has been, it has been from the start. The very first thing we did, we had the Title V checked. And we were told by the Board of Health it was operational. We had, I think the guy that went down there and did the test on it. And they said it was operational and we did not have to replace it due to, it's going from a 2-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. So it's functioning.
So the new fire station is going to have a Title V compliant system.
Yes. You
Okay,
cannot
thank
have,
you.
you cannot get a certificate of occupancy without all those boxes checked. So I'm sure if you have follow-up questions, I'm sure that that the chief or anybody at town hall will be happy to work with you. So I thank you for your questions. Before the board is whether or not to approve the construction contract or not to approve it and wait until town meeting. So I will put it out there if anyone would like to make a motion regarding this matter. Are there?
I move to award to Tower Construction Corp. in the amount of $1,294,000 for the replacement of the Hummerock Fire Station.
Mr. Vignani
Second.
has moved. I'm sorry, Mr. Goodrich has seconded. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Seeing none, this requires a roll call vote.
Okay, do you want to do for each one or at the
Sure,
end?
I'll do them all, Lorraine, and then we'll see.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, we'll consolidate because without that contract, you don't need the other. So go ahead.
In addition, I move to award the contract to Coastal Engineering Corp. in the amount of $50,000 for construction contract administration of the
Okay.
Hummerock Fire Station project.
Thank you. Moved by Mr. Vignani. Is there a second by Mr. Goodrich? Thank you. Third
it-
motion?
Lastly, I move to assign the administration of the replacement of the Hummerock Fire Station to the Public Building Commission effective immediately.
Second.
Moved aggressively by Mr. Vignani and seconded by Mr. Goodrich. Is there any further discussion on any of those motions? Yes, Mr. Vignani.
Just one last point. No tension, Murph.
No tension at all, Tony.
I'm with you, brother.
You know I love you.
All right, great. Glad that's clarified. Please let the minutes reflect that there's no tension between Mr. Vignani and Chief Murphy. Having said that, we will do a roll call vote on all three together.
Yes, Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
All three motions have been unanimously approved by the board. Congratulations, Chief. Go and build a good building, please.
Thank you. We will do that. Thank you for your support. Merry Christmas and happy
Merry
holidays. to you
Christmas,
all.
Chief.
Happy
You.
holidays.
Thank
See you,
you.
Murph.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay. As much as I hate to admit it, we're 17 minutes behind schedule. We have several fiscal 22 budget presentations. And I will let everyone that's waiting know that Jim gave us an overview at our last meeting about sort of the macro parameters of the budget. We've all reviewed, let me get our stacks of paper from each of you. And we are going to begin with the very patient Mr. DeVito, who is our town assessor, and begin with tab number 141, which is the Town of Scituate Assessors Department. So Joe, would you like to give us the highlights and the 1 or 2 points that you think that really should be highlighted for the public's sake? And note that we all have all of your backup material.
Sure. This budget, like other budgets in years in the last couple of years, really focus on 3 main goals, objectives. One is the continued reinspection program of all of the properties within the town of Scituate to ensure that every property has been inspected within the last 10 years by fiscal 24, which is our next reval. Also, we are annually updating values based on sales. For this year's fiscal 2021 values, they were based primarily on 2019 sales because the assessment date's January 1st, 2020. We do have a certified tax rate. It's $13.33 for fiscal 21. And I do want to thank every one of you, Nancy, Jim, the board, my staff, Nancy. There's a lot of people that really contributed to making this year under extraordinary circumstances go as smooth as possible. Not only with the tax rate, but also inspections. Quickly, we also made some progress in the improvements, streamlining office functions. So we are really doing more with the same as far as staffing levels and finances. The only change in our budget is based on personnel costs, only change financially. And I'll keep it short and feel free to ask any questions.
Great, thanks, Joe. So fiscal 21 budget was $236,300 for this department. The town administrator has recommended $243,856, which, as you said, is just a person is mostly reflected in personnel costs, and which Jim discussed last week. You did note in your goals that additional resources for fiscal 23 are going to probably be needed. And I put a big star next to that because that was
okay.
Obviously. I'd like, do you have any sense of, I mean, we're not really talking about that yet, but you got a long way to go and it's going to require extra hands. Is that the thinking?
I'm preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. If we stay on task, we do have resources for a third party company, the same company that assists us with our annual revaluations or valuations, as well as the company that provides our computer assisted mass appraisal system. So we do have 20,000 plus available for assistance in inspections, not including hopefully the 15,000 that's in this year's budget. That will help us a great amount. The issue is really, it's all coming down to timing. The state requires a majority of your inspections to be a full measure and list, which is not just an exterior measurement, but an interior measurement. Due to COVID, I've put a hold on any contractual services because I want to get our bang for our buck. It's the same price, $25 per inspection, whether they get inside or not. If and when the time comes, there'll be a coordinated effort to utilize that third-party service to conduct as many inspections as possible, both interior and exterior, along with in-house staff. Myself and Jackie Malahy have, we're getting probably about 1,000 inspections done a year, and the majority of those are measuring lists. Also, MLS has been helpful, multiple listing service during these COVID times. At least those properties that are on there, we can get a peek inside and just see if there's been any changes in a good way or may have a negative impact on value. All with the goal of taking that tax levy and dividing it up as equally as possible based on everyone's fair market value.
Terrific.
But I'm hopeful that there won't be any need for additional resources in 2023, but it is a possibility based on the current conditions we're working under.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that because that makes perfect sense. Quickly, you do have a bylaw change proposal I believe, proposed for the 18. Can you just give a high, we're gonna get into that much later, so we don't need to do the details, but we are gonna be closing the warrant tonight.
Oh, okay. Yes, quickly, the Board of Assessors, my staff and the Veterans Agent and myself, it was brought to our attention that there is a local option where currently veterans must reside in Massachusetts in order to meet the residency requirement. They must reside in Massachusetts for 2 years to meet that residency requirement for any veterans exemptions. And we're simply asking the town to adopt the local option to change that from 2 years to 1 year.
Okay, great. I just thought while you're here, you could do that. We will
Yes,
dive
thank
into
you,
that
thank you.
more as we review the warrant articles, but I wanted to bring that. I would like to open it up to the board. Have any questions about this particular budget? No, it's pretty straightforward. Thank you so much for your time and
Thank you.
for your efforts to bring us all up to snuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's
Thanks,
it.
Joe.
You.
Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
then I know it must be Jessie Finney next because she just popped up in the library. So our next budget obviously is the library. Jessie Finney is our library director in that little box, and I love your background. And I'm sorry I missed the meeting yesterday. I had conflicting meeting.
No problem.
So Jess, same thing. We're speed dating a little bit because we have a lot to cover tonight. We all have your backup, your budget. Sorry, let me get the right page here. This is tab 610 for the board. Last year's budget was just a little over $1 million in total. The town administrator has reckoned 1.1 million. And as with the prior budget, the majority of that is increases in staff personnel services. But could you run us through the good stuff? Some highlights from how you guys have been coping with COVID and how you want to go forward for in the coming year.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for seeing me tonight. I just want to kind of start by, I kind of have to take this opportunity to say thank you to the library staff, because I think all of the work that we're doing right now, serving the public, really couldn't be done obviously without them. And we feel like, I won't go into this too much because I know you have all of the documentation in front of you, but we really feel like we changed our business model several times this year, between working from home and then returning to work and establishing a curbside service. And then again, with the reopening, which we're very appreciative to Jim, to Kevin Kelly, to Drew Shealy, to all of the folks in town who helped us with the reopening. And we continue to be, pretty busy for what we have to offer. We see between 180 to 200 visitors a day. We've seen about 17,000 visitors since we reopened in August. We've checked out about 75,000 items. These numbers aren't what they normally are. Certainly, we normally have 500 people a day visiting the library, but with no programming, no in-person programming, I should say, and no ability to stay and work and study, all of the things that we're so used to offering and that we enjoy offering to the community. We're really proud of what we are able to accomplish. And I will say that I've received a lot of really, really lovely notes from the community thanking us for being open. And I just want to mention that we remain one of the very few libraries on the South Shore that are open to the public. And we are actually being visited by a large number of other community members along the South Shore. About 20% of our visitors right now are from other communities. So we're really proud of what we're doing. We feel like, obviously we're not firefighters, we're not the police, but we do feel like for the people who come into the library, they feel that we are essential services to them. And we do feel like, we're really offering something important to the community right now. I'm happy to talk about any of the overall goals. We have some that are COVID related and some that are just general library business. I know, there might be some questions. One of our goals is to become a fine-free library. I can certainly speak to that. I always like to bring something to you guys in the hopes that we can move it forward at some point. I recognize this may not be the year for it, because I understand even a small amount of revenue, which is, what we're bringing in right now is a small amount of revenue for the fines. But it is a direction that I'd love to see us go in at some point. And many other libraries have gone before us and are having great success with it. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll try to keep it brief because I know you guys have a lot to get to tonight.
Thanks, Jesse. I commend you and your staff. And you have literally had to reinvent the wheel over and over in this, and you've done so and served the community extremely well. And so thank you for that. And unfortunately, I think we're probably going to have to do that a couple more times before we can get back to things. So please extend our thanks to the staff. Does the board have any questions about this budget? I think the budget itself is pretty straightforward. It's we're just throwing darts at what's going to happen in the next 6 months, especially as your department is concerned. Yes, Ms. Curran.
Hi, Jesse. Thank you for all your work. I know it is tough, and I see you have a couple of vacant positions. What is your strategy, or what are your thoughts? During this time, you're just going to hold off to see if your hours, if anything, if we get a little bit more relief in the next couple months, or what are you thinking?
We have filled a number of positions. We actually did a lot of internal promotions, which we always are very excited about that. So our children's librarian is now the adult services librarian. The teen assistant is now the children's librarian, and one of our library technicians is now the circulation supervisor. So those were all positions. And I should also say, one of our part-time library technicians is now a full-time library technician. So we had a lot of internal staff changes to fill those vacancies. We did fill the teen position. We have someone coming in January for that. We felt like it was important to continue to fill the teen and the children's positions because we do support families and so many folks in the schools at the children's and teens level. So especially if schools do go remote again, we played a pretty big role in helping support them during that time in the spring. So knowing that could happen again, we felt it was important to fill the teen position. We still have an outstanding 20-hour-a-week part-time position. I'm not in any hurry to fill that one. I do want to fill it because it's important, for our schedule. But, just with things the way they are now, watching the numbers, it may be more prudent to wait until, we all have a better handle on things.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions for Jesse? Mr. Goodwin?
I just wanted to say thank you. For providing the sense of normalcy to our community and others. We're just blessed for the work that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great. All right.
I just want to point out again that, as Jesse said, our library is one of the only libraries, not only in the South Shore, but around, that's open. And I know when we talked about it, the staff was a little leery. I don't blame them. But we sent Drew up, we sent Kevin Kelly up and Bob up, and we walked through all the stuff that we were going to do that would be protective of the staff and the patrons. And the library staff said, yep, great, let's go. Rolled it out. They've been great. It's one of the things that we're monitoring as these numbers go up, whether or not that's one of the things we're going to have to roll back. But to Jesse's credit, to her staff's credit, they came back to work and it's been fantastic. And as she said, a lot of people are very appreciative of the fact that there is some semblance of normalcy that they can go to get a book or do something. So we're going to do the best we can to go as long as we can. But that is one of the things as these numbers start going up, that we might have to take a look at to be protective of not only the staff, but the residents that are using the space. But congratulations to Jesse and the staff for stepping up and being open.
Thank you, Jim.
Ms. Connolly, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I agree, Jesse. It would be ideal to go to a no fine model. My question is, does this current budget reflect that, or is that just something that we might want to consider going forward?
So our budget, our fines go to the general fund, so they don't play a role in our budget. So I guess it's very easy for me to talk about numbers.
Well,
that
I was
don't
just,
go into
yeah,
the overall
I was
budget,
just going to
but-
say that. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So I'd be a little less willing to do it this year at least. So
Understood.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Finney? Nope. Great. Jesse, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next budget, if there's somebody that's not participating in the conversation that could please mute themselves, keep popping up. Our next item is tab 161, our town clerk, Kathy Gardner. Is Kathy presenting or is someone presenting on her
No,
behalf?
I'm here on the phone.
Oh,
I'm
there you
here.
are. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Hello.
Kathy hasn't had anything to do this year, so.
Nope.
So your budget, last year, fiscal 21 budget was $254,000, and the town administrator recommended is a reduction of $208,000. A lot of that was staff, personnel services, and also a big chunk is from support services regarding elections. I assume that's because of the super quiet year you've had. Would you like to run us through the numbers first?
That's completely true. As you know, my office operates with the statutory and mandatory obligations relative to conducting elections and town meeting, and those are the major expenditures of the department. So being that last year we had all those events, that's why you see a decrease in my budget this year, because there's one scheduled election for FY22, and that would be the annual town election. So that is the difference in costs for the budget for this year and last year.
Right. And, you know, you've been told a million times, but I don't think we can say enough. Thank you for the incredibly professional commencement of our election season and conclusion of its results. You guys did outstanding work, as you well know, but I'll say it again. The budget's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you're looking forward to not a less hectic year. Are there any questions from the board for our town clerk?
No, but thank you, Kathy.
Great. Okay, well, if we have no other questions, this one's pretty straightforward, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. And unless you have anything you want to add, Kathy, we'll move on to Widow's Walk.
Very quickly, because I know you're short on time, I just wanted to say publicly thank you to the election workers and my office staff. The stress, the busyness, the hecticness, whatever you want to call it, it was overwhelming at times. And again, I mentioned this at the advisory the other night. Town hall staff has been extremely supportive. Nancy, Seth, and Jim doing the weekly updates and allowing me to chime in on that was very helpful to the early voters and voters in general, whether they were early voting by mail, in person, or showing up at the election to vote in person on election day. Tom Grime, our custodian, the many other departments that contributed to helping us with the burden and the overall traffic, even in town hall alone. But I appreciate it because it truly does take a village to do something. I mean, I have had many people thank us, and it's not just me, it's not just my staff, it's everybody, it's collective. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I really appreciate the support, and I hope everybody has a nice holiday, and I certainly hope 2021 is a healthier year and a happier new year for all of us.
Right.
Very well said, Madam Clerk. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Karen.
You're welcome.
Kathy, thanks for everything.
Thank you, Maura.
In other fun budgets, the next is tab 61, which is the Widows Walk Enterprise Fund. And I don't know who else was able to go into town hall today and got the Widow Walk revenue projections, that we're all aware that the numbers are pretty good. Is Ian with us today?
We may need him to raise his hand. I'm not working. that
Oh,
one.
okay. Ian, can you participate and raise your hand? If you're a phone number, we don't know which one you are. If you can let us know, we will unmute you. There's a bunch of unidentified callers. Oh, there's somebody unmuted.
Hello?
Ian, is that you?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so Ian Kelly is our new Widows Walk Golf Superintendent, and you're having a good year. Your budget for projections for fiscal '22, budget for this year has been 1.1 and change million, and the town administrator recommendation is to increase that by $293,000 to 1.4 million. And the biggest, I'm sorry, multiple pages here.
Yep.
That there's an increase, the greatest increases are in the management fee and technical services under services. And I think those are the biggest bulk. And then the administration of long-term debt. Is that correct? Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes, so that's the long-term debt, the 252,000 is for the new clubhouse.
Yeah.
And that's for year one. And then after that, I think it goes down to 215 after the first year, and then gradually lowers each year after that. But I'd like to thank everyone from the select board, Jim, Nancy, everyone for the support this year. I know I'm new to town, but just getting that clubhouse up and approved was huge, and hopefully we get construction going mid-January. So thank you.
Great. How long is the new contract for the management? I know we signed it, but could you remind me? Do you know?
For IGM, I believe it has 22 and then has an option year, I believe. I think Nancy could confirm, but I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. Does the board have any questions about the budget? Mr. Vignani? And then Mr.
Yeah, Karen, I didn't get that document. Maybe you have it there or Nancy knows. What are the projected revenues for the year? Or Ian, if you know it, that's.
Projected revenues, well, I'll tell you what the current revenues are for this year. We're currently about 220,000 year to date ahead of any other year ever. So we're about 956,000 in sales so far. And we just closed the course down on after Sunday, but we are keeping open for gift certificates for the next week or so. But we're on pace for slightly over 1.4 million this year, which would be well and above. We should net around 350 plus thousand, which would add into our slush fund for the future.
Great. Yeah, you're having a spectacular year. And the profit number and the sales number would be, probably all-time highs. A few questions on the budget itself. First of all, some of the highlights of the year. You've done a great job, injecting technology into the operations there. The social media aspect of it, the new scheduling aspect of it, I think all had a huge impact on the sales. One question I did have for you, and I don't know if you look at it, is clearly COVID had a huge increase in golf all across the country. But rain days are usually what kind of inhibits the sales from hitting higher numbers. Do you know how the rain days compared to prior years?
Yeah, I would say we had about 11 to 12 less rain days than normal. So that's a part of the challenges is the weather. Even though we had the drought, it was kind of a a double-edged sword. We had the drought, which hurt our fairway conditions and rough conditions. The greens were great all year, but it also prohibited an additional play on even the slow days. So I think but the good news is now that COVID and mass golf have come to realize all the regulations for golf and how we can start next year no matter what, and have it be active, which is huge. I think they figured it out, and I do think that even though we did have a pretty severe drought in the summertime, there's still a lot of opportunities during the week where we can improve upon and try to gain some other rounds from other local courses. And I think this year brought a lot of new golfers into the scene with COVID for sure. But a lot of them who I taught also are going to do it for the future. A lot of people buying new sets of clubs, and a lot of people getting into the game, whether it's spouses, kids, or just people who have been, working for the last 10, 15 years. Now the kids are old enough where they can get into it. So I think there's going to be other opportunities with that. And I think it will, even though this is a spike for sure, I think it will level off as an increase for sure from the past years at Widows Walk, especially with the tee time system, where in the past where you could, if you booked a twosome or a single spot at 11 o'clock on a Friday, it would block that entire foursome off and you wouldn't be able to add other players into it. That itself has gained about 15 to 20% on the greens fee side.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're getting a little bit of a boost from the pandemic that's going on, but I think you're building your usership, and that's going to carry forth in the future years. And clearly, you don't have to. You're going to have your challenges ahead of you, which is why I like seeing the merchandising increases and some of the other things that you're doing to create revenue, because your budget for 2022 is basically break even. So because of the huge debt that's coming in with the first year of the clubhouse. So, so we'll have to keep the revenue up at that high level. But those are you got it all in your report here that kind of outline what you're trying to do here. And I think you've got it covered very well. So.
Yeah, and there's a few revenues they're going to be, potentially difficult to reach, like the green fees. But I mean, currently this year we're at 558,000 year to date, so we're on pace for about 785,000 for this year, FY21. And I think the biggest increase is cart fees. So cart fees, our FY22 is 225,000. We're already year to date 221 for FY21, and we get April, May, and June. So that's probably another 95,000 to 100,000 there. So. I think 1.4 million for revenues this year, I think, is actually going to be a conservative number. And, but it is definitely, I mean, the expense side I will obviously manage if something did happen, in the future, but I think we're in good shape.
Yeah. And it's great to have, that bucket of money of profit that we'll have this year to cover you in any, rain soaked seasons right there at that. So great job, and look forward to the new facilities over there.
Sorry, Mr. Goodrich, did you have your?
Yeah. I mean, just kind of to piggyback off of that, I guess I was a bit surprised that on the marketing side, how that's kind of gone down. Was there any thought as to why, to ensure that some of those folks come back, to keep a higher level for marketing, or are you pretty confident that your round capacity is already going to be pretty high? I guess I don't want to lose those folks, and so I always get a little nervous just cutting.
Yeah, I think in the past the only real marketing that there's ever been at Widows was that South Shore, I believe, the South Shore Living magazine. There really hasn't been much marketing. I mean, all of the social media stuff I'm going to be doing is all free, and I think, especially in the golf business, word of mouth is huge. And I know a lot of people in the golf business. I know a lot of people in my age group that come down and play, and it gets around, and people come down, and they haven't. A lot of people I know that played Widows Walk this year for the first time. Most of our Friday, Saturday, Sunday rounds, which is where we make most of our money, is we do get a lot of locals in the morning, but really that's a lot of people coming down from Boston, coming down from Cambridge, coming down from the city and Quincy. And the younger population that is going to be continually play for the next 20 to 30 years. And so I think it's really, if we have a good product and we have good customer service and we're friendly and they love, all that kind of comes into play with a new clubhouse. I think it'll kind of sell itself. I think a part of the reason why some people don't like playing, which is what I've been told, is, they come to play the golf course and they look to go find a beer or find lunch somewhere else. And we can't have that. So I think that's what's nice about, improving the facilities. And really the only, other factor for the player experience, in my opinion, would be the fairway conditions and tee box conditions, which, we have a plan and we're working on. And eventually, once we get that slush fund, we'll get that irrigation system. So I think, and everyone's aware of that, and they're all seem pretty motivated, which is nice.
Can we not refer to it as a slush fund, please? It's our retained revenue account. It is not a slush fund.
How about a kitty?
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings.
Retained earnings.
Appropriate management of our fiscal responsibility.
You learned it from the best, Jim, right?
Oh, it's great. Ms. Curran.
Ian, thanks for such a great job your first year here. And I had a question for you though. Why would you project the dues from the season and frequent players to go down? Are you changing that program?
Nope. So the reason why, I think, is because for FY20, towards the end, right, which was when I came in, end of April, May, and June, there was a lot of restrictions with COVID with the state, and you couldn't book a tee time, which is where Jim and Nancy were so helpful. I had to change the tee time and POS systems in one, basically a week, just to get players to come in, because they were only allowing members to play, and so there was no interaction in the golf shop, no cash exchange, anything like that. So what we did to kind of get around that was we were offering these, which they already had the program in place, which was nice. I just kind of took advantage and ran with it. There's a program called the Players Pass, which is the frequent player program.
Oh, I remember that. Okay. Yep.
It was mandatory to do that to play the golf course. So a lot of people bought those and used them for them and their friends. And because we weren't allowed to have greens, you couldn't come in and pay for a round of golf until June 15th. So you had to become a member, and that was our way of saying you were a member. And so people would just come to the window, we'd check off their pass, and then they would go. So that had a huge increase with the frequent player revenue in FY20, which I think some people might stick with that, but I don't, it won't be to the same degree. We kind of force people's hands because the state forced our hands. So that's why that revenue number is higher in FY20.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. And then this question is really for Jim and Nancy. I think CPC last night was pretty clear that they're not interested in funding the parking lot rehab. So I want to make sure that we're taking a look at other options, whether it's through our capital plan for 2021. I don't know if we can take a look at that and add that in, because I don't know how we build a brand new clubhouse and not complete that parking lot. So I just wanted to put that on your radar since we're in the budgetary cycle here, and figure out how we can get that done.
Was that anticipated? Can we anticipate that at this point in capital for the coming year?
No, it's not on the capital for the current year because the golf course can't support it with everything else we're doing. So if we have a really good year and we have our retained revenues up again, then we can look to do that out of golf course revenues. But with the clubhouse, we'll have to look at doing it later on, which was kind of the plan of the CPC to do it after the clubhouse was done. But we didn't have, I think it's up to $700,000, Ian, somewhere around there.
730.
Yes, it is. 706 is what I was given, 706 from Kevin Cafferty.
And that seems a lot for a parking lot.
Yeah,
It is a lot.
Sean Harris and I can do it for like $6.95.
Yeah, but I'd be out there with a ruler measuring the thickness of the asphalt.
Well, to Maura's point though, I think, obviously that includes doing a whole new drainage, doing all that stuff, but it would be an absolute shame to have a gorgeous new building and then, car-sized potholes in that lot still. So we need to keep that on the radar.
Well, I mean, there are some things that we could potentially do in the short term to make it a little bit better, but to do it right is going to be expensive.
Right.
Of course.
I think the best plan, which I think is Jim's plan, is to just, finish out next year, see what our return earnings are, and then see what kind of other debt we could take, maybe a $50,000-$60,000 a year debt on doing that, along with the clubhouse, because the clubhouse payments will go down gradually. So I think we just want to wait and see another year of revenues to see how this kind of wave levels off.
Okay.
Did you guys see Nancy shiver when he said debt?
Yeah.
It's my job to make sure it doesn't level off.
Ms. Conley, did you have another comment on this?
Yeah, I think the issue probably was, and I wasn't at the meeting, but the sticker shock that came because a few years ago, right before their debt was retired, the golf course did come to the CPC and they were asking to improve the parking lot for $250,000, I think was what was proposed. And for a whole host of reasons that I won't get into, CPC said no at that time. So I think when the golf course came back this time around and it was 750 or thereabouts, I think there was just a great deal of, dismay over the number being so much bigger. So just want to give you that perspective.
Yeah, they had a big debate too, though, about maintenance and rehabilitation, whether or not it really fell under. But they didn't vote on anything yet, but I just wanted to put it out there that it's not looking good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I believe that original 250 though was the wrap, which was the reused asphalt, which is why it was so low. Because the original quote I had from 2015 was 550 or 575. So I'm not sure what was presented to them. But I think it might have been they were just asking for a portion of it. But either way, I could see why they were surprised.
They were asking for the whole thing, but again, I don't, no need to relitigate a 4-year ago decision, but the number was much bigger this time around.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good point to keep it on the radar. Are there any more questions or comments about the budget for the Widows Walk Enterprise Fund? All right. Thank you, Ian. Thank you for all your hard work, and have a great holiday season. Everyone go out and buy gift certificates.
There you go.
That's what everyone wants in their stocking this year. So.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
can
just
get Nancy's present for Christmas.
yeah, just one other note, Widows Walk has a new design. I saw it the other day. So Ian's done a great job changing the marketing of that too. It'll look great.
When he says logo.
The logo, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant the clubhouse.
No, not the clubhouse. I meant the logo.
That's why I didn't want to confuse.
I'd love to see it, Ian.
New
Send
merch.
it over for us to see.
All right.
I certainly will.
Okay. Great. All right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Have a great night.
You too,
We're
thank
going to move on to probably the man of the year. We have the Board of Health budget, tab 510. Is Drew online?
I am online. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Everyone's hiding in their phones. So we know you need to get to bed because you got a few things to do. The overall for your fiscal 21 budget for the department, the Board of Health budget was $278,500. Town administrator and department recommendation align at $306,519 for fiscal 22. 100% of that increase is personnel services. So I don't even know where to start with you, Drew, but if you could just give us sort of.
Talked a long time, but I know you have something going on at 8:40 and we have 2 more after me. So I'll make sure you have at least a minute for each one of them. Okay.
Thank you. You're going to get us on track. I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, luckily we get to, unfortunately for the reason, we get to talk to you a lot. So how are you guys holding up?
So, I'd like to, thank my staff. I think Teresa, Joan, our new hiree, Erica, and I can't say enough about Eileen Scotty, our public health nurse. Just phenomenal public servants, just above and beyond. So I'm just really proud to have them on my staff, and I'm sure the town's really proud to have them working for them. So this year's been quite the challenge with COVID-19, going back to right around March 1st when it started. You know, we've worked really closely with the town administrator, Mr. Boudreau, with, you know, Mark from the fire department, the police department, John from the fire department, Kevin Kelly from facilities. Those are the original people that we worked really close with, just to make sure that, you know, everyone felt safe coming to work, what we were going to do, making sure everyone knew what the guidelines were. So we did a lot of education when we did that. And then as things progressed and as we reopened small segments of the economy, we had to make sure that we went out and talked to all those different people, whether it was the hairdressers, the nail salons, the gyms, the restaurants, all those facilities. So we got to that approach, and then we hit summer and it kind of leveled off. Everyone was doing a good job, and we are now in the fall, late fall, coming into winter after Thanksgiving. And again, we are spiking. We are seeing numbers increase. We expected it. Once the fall started, we began to work, actually in the midsummer, we began to work very closely with Bill Burkhead and Kelly Murphy over at the school department to make sure that we were all in sync and all on the same page as to the best way that we can, you know, make sure that the kids can get back to school in a safe environment. There are so many guidelines that individual sectors of society have to follow. It's incredible. And just with the schools, from being on the school bus in the exact same spot every single day, the way you load the bus, unload the bus, get picked up, it's all designed to prevent the spread. And the reason we want to prevent the spread is we just don't want to overwhelm our hospitals. That is the reason why we're doing it. So we've been doing that whole process. And while we've been doing that, when I first started in public health right after 9/11, I was first introduced with a phrase called COOP, and it's continuity of operation plans. And all the measures that we took with each of the departments, with the plastic shielding, making sure people wore masks, making sure we had hand sanitizers, all of those measures were put in place so that we could continue to provide the services that the residents expect. You know, we still did all of our Title V inspections. They were considered essential workers. You heard Jesse on about the library. They had plans in place so that when something happened catastrophic, we could still provide the services to the residents of the town. And I have to tell you, we get a home run with that here in Scituate. I can't believe how good of a job we've done. So we are now in the winter. We have 2 vaccines that have been approved. Both have to be handled very delicately. We have been in contact with the state to find out exactly what vaccine the local boards of health are going to be getting. We're starting to hopefully get what local boards of health are going to be responsible for. You know, we've heard a lot of talk about CVS's, the pharmacies getting the vaccine and going out to the assisted living and the nursing homes. We've heard first responders getting the vaccine first. I'm not sure how the Scituate police are going to get it or how the Scituate Fire Department is going to get it, but they're in that second group of people after the hospital. So these are questions that still have to be answered, and the state is still working on that. They know they have their, you know, a lot on their hands right now, just trying to get the initial vaccine out, especially the visor, which has to be 80 degrees below 0 Celsius, I believe. So I imagine that the local communities, because we don't have that type of refrigeration, Johnson & Johnson is scheduled to be coming up for approval sometime in January. That's a vaccine that is very stable. You know, regular refrigeration will be able to handle it. So I imagine that that's probably the one that we'll end up getting. You know, boards of health have traditionally done flu clinics for as long as I've been in it, since '97. It's nothing new to us. I don't think we'll have any problem distributing the vaccine once we find out exactly who our target population is going to be and how the state plans on rolling it out. We've already spoken with, you know, the fire department about paramedics. They've already been approved to give the vaccine. Like I said, we talked with Bill Burkett and Kelly Murphy, who oversees the school nurses. Those are additional resources that we can use to administer the vaccine. And these are all people that are licensed, all been, you know, queried by the town for employment, all insured by the town. It's not like we have outside people that we have to worry about. So it's probably the best way that we can do it. Still trying to figure out what we're going to need for paperwork to be signed by individuals who want it, how that's going to work out. But that's where we are right now. And I guess I'll stop right there. We are in phase 3, step 1. We did take a step back. I don't expect us, unless the numbers really start to get crazy, of going any further back. Right now, the state, we had been averaging right around 5-6% positive statewide. 2-week average here in Scituate this past Thursday was 3.11%. We have done roughly around 15,000 tests in Scituate. And I believe the number I calculated the other day was, that's something like 2.6 or something of those tests have been positive. So that's where we stand right now. And, you know, if anyone has any questions, I'll be free to answer anything.
Thanks, Drew. I'm glad you highlighted the fact that, you know, obviously general public is thinking Board of Health, you're just doing nothing but COVID, but you're doing COVID on top of all of the work that you have to do normally. And your staff has been extraordinary. And if we look
All
at
our restaurants are relicensed.
Yep.
This past month, everything, yeah, everything's continued to go forward besides COVID.
I know you, and you noted that, you know, the annual permits that you guys do for the foods and the septics and the pump haulers and all of that, it's 250 permits in a 2-month period. In addition to educating people on West Nile, and there was other stuff going on. So I know that you've been handing out your cell phone like candy in town, and I've been so available to everybody as we go through this. So I know the board shares, and just wanting to thank you and your whole staff for just jumping in. And we're here to give you whatever resources we can to get through this all. So thank you for that. Does the board have any questions? There's so much to talk about with Board of Health. We're trying to keep to the budget, but would anyone like to add something while we have Drew? Anybody? Thank you. You covered it very well.
Thank you, Drew. You know, you've been amazing. So just thank you for being so available to our residents. You know, we've gotten a lot of calls just complimenting you and your department. So I just want to say thank you. The only other thing I want to put on everyone's radar is we're getting a big storm. So I'm curious if we have any shelter plans.
Don't say that word.
I know, but I'm just
Everyone has to
saying.
be 6 feet apart. We do have masks. We do have, I know I would be talking with Chief Murphy if that scenario does pop up. I know that we have masks put aside in case we do need them for residents. I came from a coastal town in Quincy, even though I have long ties down here in Scituate. And, you know, people don't like to leave their homes. They do leave them more frequently in Scituate than they did in Quincy. We're a little bit less protected down here. But all you can do is you encourage people to have contingency plans, as I talked about, I think you'd much rather stay with maybe someone else in your family that's part of your pod, or maybe, something like that. But I can't imagine people would want to stay in a shelter. But if
Well,
we
I'm just
need to
bringing it up.
open it
I
up,
mean, I think
we
that's
open it
great.
up and we'll do the best we can.
Yeah, I think that's great advice that you're giving, and I think that's what people need to hear. If I have no idea how bad this storm is supposed to be in the next, 48 hours. So I'm just, any advice that you can give to folks out there to stay safe and get to, higher ground if they need to, or away from the waves. Just, we all know what it has the potential of being.
You're right.
So-
And you have to have those contingency plans.
We do have contingency plans if we have to open a shelter and COVID. As Drew said, we try not to talk about it to jinx ourselves.
Yeah.
But we do have plans if necessary.
Okay.
Great question. All right, any other questions for Drew? Okay. All right, we have 1 minute left for recreation and commit. We won't rush it. We actually are doing better than I thought. So thank you, Drew. We will move on to tab 630, which is Mara Glancy's, our recreation director. Mara, are you here?
I'm here. I'm on the phone.
They're all hiding out.
All right, hold on. I'm trying to get all, here we go. I have a lot of papers, Mara. Thank you. Mara, how long have you been recreation director?
Well, I was co-director with Jennifer Vitelli for 3 years, and now, gosh, when did she leave? I think in 2016 she left.
Yeah.
And Nick Lombardo came on as my assistant director, who I think is on the line too, right, Nick? Is Nick on?
You might have to raise his hand so that Seth knows who to unmute.
There is someone on the phone. I just asked to unmute. I'm not sure if that is him.
He would have to go *6, I think. Well,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
well,
So-
he's great, and so there he is.
Hi, Nick. Okay,
Nick,
so the overview of the budget is your fiscal 21 budget for recreation. Am I looking? Yeah, the right one is 155,700. I'm rounding 700,000, and the department recommendation, town recommendation align, and increases the budget by $4,600 to 160,000. All of that is personnel. I assume that with the weirdness of this year, that might be some of it, but if you could give us sort of the highlights of what you see the budget for the coming year. I mean, everything's got an asterisk next to it, depending on programming, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, programming is a little limited due to COVID. We can't take as many people in our programs. Our directors and staff here is superb, unbelievable, including our office staff and all our directors who direct our programs. They're so loyal and dedicated. They've tried to make a little normalcy back into this life of ours that we have. When everything came to a screeching halt back in March 13th, and then the schools closed down, everybody was calling us up and begging us to open up, and we weren't sure what we were going to do. We were pretty much our heads were on a swivel, not knowing what to do. We concentrated on opening up the beaches first because that looked like the most ideal place to be at the time, being outside and at the beach. And so we opened up the beaches on June 15th, which was great. And our staff, our lifeguard staff, did a phenomenal job. I know you had honored them at one time when they saved 3 children from drowning back in June, and they have made quite a few saves throughout the summer. I can't say enough about our lifeguard staff. Another thing they had to deal with was some weird jellyfish that came in, and so forth and so on, and sharks and different family members being lost at the beach. But they did a phenomenal job. And as far as our programming, we didn't even take our programming registration until June 18th, and then we held our breath and opened up on July 6th. We were one of the first departments to open up to the public just to give some kind of normalcy back. So we hire a lot of the in-town adolescents with us. And so one thing that we had to change this year is we couldn't take any volunteers, and we didn't take any new staff members due to the fact that I couldn't train them. And I felt very comfortable with the staff that we had because they had gone through a series of couple years, at least 1 year of training. And I don't say anything ever until Labor Day when the beach is closed, but we had a phenomenal summer. Not as far as money-wise, we supported ourselves and whatever, but the summer went very well. People were thanking us to open up, and we had to follow all the guidelines and protocols that, as Drew mentioned, is a very extreme amount. Right, Nick?
Yeah, I'd like to really
How do you-
reiterate what Maura was saying. We're very grateful and thankful for our recreation team, which includes obviously our office staff, Kevin Devon, field coordinator, Jen Gagan, registrar, Sarah Ferreira, recreation clerk, and Caitlin Fitzmaurice, who is our assistant registrar / office staff, as well as our program directors, counselors, and independent contractors. I mean, the preparation and planning that we went through for everything since last March was not easy at all. But with everyone's participation and hard work and ability to adapt, we were able to serve the community during a pandemic, which seemed impossible really when it all started. So we were very proud of everyone.
Yeah, and it's our delight to service the community. It is, recreation's always been a soft spot in my heart ever since I've been a child. And, you know, we really try very hard to make everybody happy. As far as bringing people together, that's what we're supposed to do. But on the contrary, that's not what we're supposed to do right now. So with all the COVID guidelines and restrictions, we go by each and every one. We take each and every one seriously. And my motto has been, I don't cut corners on COVID. COVID does not cut corners on anybody else. So we try to keep everyone as safe as possible, at the same time provide recreation for the community. There's something that happened recently. We have a Mr. C Award. This is something that I like to tell you about every year. It is an award that is named after Constantine Constantinides. I'm not sure if I said his name right, but he's a wonderful man who dedicated over 30 years to recreation. The award is given to a person who has a interest in recreation, and it goes to an individual who has significantly contributed to his or her time to our community, especially to the Scituate Recreation Department, while demonstrating good character and leadership and enthusiasm. This year, the award went to Matt Poirier. Well deserved, and he fit the mold in the criteria and far exceeded it. So congratulations to Matt. We went to his classroom and awarded him with his class in presence with his principal, Mr. Ryan Beatty, and they were thrilled that we came in and awarded him the award. One other thing that happened just last week, and I do want to mention this, and please bear with me. I know I go through a lot of thank yous at this time, but last week we had the calls to the North Pole. This was a popular event that happens every year for the last 20 some odd years. This year was very special to the community because they can't do other things with the big old guy, St. Nick. So I just want to give a short thank you to the overwhelming help that we had on that night. To Brian Sullivan, he is a longtime helper. To Deputy Chief Al Elliott, to Select Person Tony Vignani, Fire Chief John Murphy, Past Select Person John Dennehy, Al Kozowski, Community Volunteer, Mike Connor, Recreation Chairman, his son Tom, and Ryan. Rob McCourt is a Recreation Commissioner's son and school teacher. Paul Papadonis, our art director. Matt Kearney, a past sailing instructor and maybe hopefully a future one. And Chief of Police Mark Thompson. All of them dedicated their night that night to make the children in Scituate happy. One other special thank you that I'd like to say is a thank you to the late Joe Norton for all his years and help and for never saying no to us. I just want to make sure that he is recognized. With that said, I'd like to answer any of your questions that you have about anything that has come up throughout the year.
Mara, thank you. Well said. I know that the board's going to want to chime in, but the resiliency and the creativity that your leadership and your team has provided to just keep on trucking through all of this has been wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
To the rest of the board. Any other comments? Santa's helper, do you want to?
I can just pitch in and say it's clearly been a challenging year, but at the meetings I've attended, there's always something to talk about, and there's always something going on. So, you know, Maura, you and your team and Nick and just the board in general have done a great job, you know, keeping on task and trying to be creative in terms of how we can keep, you know, provide programming for the town. And you've done that great for, you know, for decades, you and the people before you. So we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just have to tell you that we love it over here. We love this this area that you've let us use. We're trying to thrive as much as possible here, and sometime, hopefully, you guys stop in and come see us sometime. We have done a lot of improvements over here.
Great. Ms. Conley, do you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to recognize Maura's vast contribution to getting the high school athletic fields completed. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we've had to, you know, it's there. We haven't been able to have a real celebration, but I hope, you know, at some point when we're able to, that your leadership in getting that done is recognized. So thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you, Karen. You lived that with me. I remember you well there, TPC.
Over and over. Great.
I just want to say thank you to Nick and Maura and your whole team. I mean, like Tony said, you know, you're such an important aspect of our community, and not once did I hear like any complaint or any concern. You know, everyone is just so admirable of all the efforts that you and your team has made in order to provide, you know, different recreational activities during this difficult time. So thank you so much. Hopefully this year it will be behind you sooner rather than later, and you can get back to a little normalcy next summer, I hope. Fingers crossed.
All right.
Yeah.
Andrew, clean up.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, there's a rumor around town that 2021 Rec Department, the best programming ever. So everyone's gonna be signing up. So anyone listening, summer 2021, sign up early and often. It's gonna be amazing. So
I can use that promotion. Thank you. I mean, I need that promo. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Well, have a nice holiday, everybody.
If I could just throw in a quick 2 cents. And just, you know, we talked about the library. We're one of the only libraries open. As Mara said, we were one of the first recreation programs to get going. And really that's because of the mindset of the recreation department. And I think Drew and the town employees has not been, what can't we do because of COVID, but what can we do? What are the programs we can offer? It was very proactive as to, let's do the most that we possibly can with the restrictions that we have. And that made it real easy to do what we did, because once that mindset's in place, it's not a negative mindset, it's a positive mindset. And a lot of our discussions were just around, here are the guidelines. If we can run a program with the guidelines in place, then we're gonna run that program. And Mara and Nick took it, ran with it, and we're probably the biggest rec program going around right now. I know Norwell's not letting the youth basketball use the gyms, but same thing. We talked to the youth basketball. If you can meet the COVID guidelines, you can be in the old Gates gym and we'll do the cleaning. So with that yes attitude, it really allowed us to do a lot of things that other towns weren't doing. And Nick and Mara deserve, you know, the lion's share of the credit for that.
And thank you to all of you for believing in us and trusting us throughout this whole process, and all your support. Thank you.
I agree.
Well, thank you, guys. We will conclude our discussion about the Recreation Department, if no one else has anything else, and we will move on to our last budget review for this evening, which is tab 549, our Commissions on Disability. And, oh, wait, Nancy left the room. Of course, the 1 second.
There is no change. There is no change in the Commission on Disabilities budget.
Okay, so it's a $5,000 budget prior in 2021, and it's 5,000 level in the recommended budget for the town administrator's budget. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sure Jim can handle them. There's no change. All right, good job, Nance. All right.
No, just thank you to that commission. They work hard to figure
Yes, they
things
do.
out.
You know, I did say to the advisory board, it's a small budget, but it does a lot of great things. And I've been doing town administration stuff for 20 plus years. I think one of my favorite days was the day we unveiled the handicap beach carts, and that young gentleman was able to take the beach cart and go down to the beach for the first time in how many years, and how much joy he got from that. So it's a small budget, but just some of the stuff they do. You know, one of the things they did this year is they bought some masks with clear cutouts, so that people with hearing disabilities could read lips. So it's a small budget, but they do really, really good things with a little bit of money.
Right. Great. Thank you for that, Jim. All right. Well, that means we are up to our update, coastal management update with our management officer, Kyle Boyd, and also from MAPC, Josh Viala. Hopefully I said that right.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, Kyle, thanks for waiting. Not too far,
No
but
problem.
we have two important things to discuss. Kyle's going to give us an update on the National Flood Insurance Program and our community rating system, which I think people don't appreciate how much it actually directly impacts them. And then we're moving on to the Downtown Harbor Sustainability and Resiliency Master Plan update. So Kyle, if I could turn it over to you, I'll let you start with the flood insurance update.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's important that we provide the board an update. It is very impactful to the community. We just had a 5-year audit. You can hear me all right, right?
Yep.
All right, great. Yeah. So we just basically, by partaking in the National Flood Insurance Program, every year we have to do an annual submittal to CRS, but every 5 years we have to do a pretty big audit. And that audit was due November 11th, so last month, and we submitted it, and they provided feedback and some things they wanted us to submit that were outstanding, and we submitted those, and we just finished it up. So based off the initial feedback I received from Eugene Coles, who was the CRS coordinator, he thinks we're going to come in a few hundred points ahead of the report we submitted 5 years ago. So that's great news. So I thought it would be useful for me just to go over what is in that audit, so that the board kind of is familiar with what's going on in the CRS. So every 5 years, we have to submit all the elevation certificates for development that's occurred in the floodplain. So I work closely with the building department. Bob and his staff were great in helping me get all that information. We have to show that we are providing public outreach. And there's 3 different ways that we're providing public outreach in regards to flood information. We're putting pamphlets in 5 different municipal buildings. We send letters out to town residents. And we put stuff on our websites. So that's the map information, public outreach service component. We have to document how we are maintaining our stormwater management systems throughout town. So I worked with the DPW staff to get that information. We have to document all the repetitive loss structures within the community. So basically, that means any coastal property that submitted multiple claims, we have to track and monitor their status. So typically if somebody elevates their home, then they will come off that repetitive loss list. So we had, we kind of have a little bit of skewed data because what happened was CRS was using an old data set, and FEMA actually sent us the revision in October. So we got the latest data. The previous data was from 2016. We got the latest data in October of this year, which increased the repetitive loss number. So they provided me that data in October. I had to go through it, and there were a ton of properties that shouldn't have been on there that were mitigated. So we removed a lot, but all I'm getting at is it's hard to really know how we're doing in comparison to 5 years ago because the data hadn't been updated. So if you go to the next thing that we're responsible for doing is the floodplain management planning. So every 5 years we have to do a hazard mitigation plan. And our last one was done in 2016. So in that plan, we basically document how we're going to respond to hazards. And that plan's put together by an incredible team of town staff, residents, business owners. And then one component is each year after that plan's created, we have to submit a document to the Board of Selectmen that shows how we have been implementing that plan. So that's the document that you guys received tonight. And just to go off a little more on that, we are going to be updating our hazard mitigation plan. We currently are in contract with Horsley Witten, and that plan has launched. So we've had our initial meetings with town staff, and we're working to update our hazard mitigation plan. Another component of the CRS is we have to document any acquisitions that we've made within the floodplain. We didn't have any new ones, but we do get credit for ones that we did in the past. There were a lot back in the day at Peggotty Beach. We have to document our drainage systems and how we are maintaining them. We have to send all the repetitive loss homes notification every year, letting them know what they can do to mitigate their property. So we sent out about 750 letters. And we do get calls from those, which is great. I think I already said this, but I'm not sure. We have to put documentation at the library that people can read on how they can basically protect themselves in flood situations. And just, we have probably 10 to 15 different documents at the library that people can read on flood protocols and stuff like that. We have to document any new open space acquisitions we've made. This is a big one we get credit for that's in the floodplain. We also have to map any new open space. So that was actually a little tough, but the assessors department was really great to work with in that regards. They were very helpful. We have to submit all our standards that have to do with flood. And then we get credit for any standards that we have that are higher than the existing standards. And we actually do have some. So Bob was very helpful again in getting that information. And then we get credit for mapping our dams. So that's pretty much what the audit looked like. We submitted it and we did really well. So that's exciting. I'm really glad that it's done with. It was kind of stressful, but it's behind us and we did great. So that's huge. So then now just to speak on the past year and the report that I provided you guys. This report actually is going to look a lot like the report you guys received last year. With COVID, there weren't too many new initiatives, but I will speak on the initiatives that were different. Most of them you are familiar with already. The hazard mitigation plan we just launched. We did a managed retreat feasibility study at Peggotty Beach, which I would like to come back and give a presentation to you guys on, because that was a big initiative that was completed. But with everything going on, we never came to the selectmen. We have been, we finished the downtown Auburn master plan, which Josh is going to present on after I'm done. We did the coastal vision process, which you guys are familiar with. We elevated one property in the floodplain. We elevated one, which basically means we submitted for one in that time span, but there were 8 that were ongoing in 2019. And we just applied for 3 more yesterday. What else is in here? We completed the storm tide pathways report, and then a lot of the other stuff that's in here is kind of pre-existing the last year. It talks about the 2016 plan. It talks about some sea level rise reports that were done. Talks about all the grants we've received. It basically is, it goes over everything that we've done in the last 5 years from a coastal perspective. So the engineering department's always been great helping me with this. But if you have any questions, it's kind of the once over of the CRS and this report I showed you guys.
Kyle, when will we hear back from CRS as to the acceptance of it? Don't we hear back?
Yes. Yes. So basically they're gonna, there's multiple things that are going on. They responded directly to me and all the stuff they needed from me. And I just submitted that, and they verbally told me that it was all satisfactory, but now they have to go and calculate those points. But what's happening separately, and this is a little backlogged on their end, is they do an audit of the elevation certificates that were submitted by the building department. That we have not received feedback on yet, but that is it's a separate process that they also look for compliance. So that's not just to score the CRS, it's also to see if we're in compliance out in the field with how people are constructing. So it takes a little longer, but that holds up the entire process. So we won't probably hear back anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And that's at the quickest, because they haven't even provided Bob with an initial review. So once they provide Bob with an initial review, he actually gets 2 chances to get everything correct. So he'll be able to submit to them. And then if there's still outstanding issues, he'll get to submit again. And then after that, they'll score the elevation certificates, as well as let him know if there's any compliance issues out in the field. The compliance issues then, I believe, get handled by DCR. So it kind of concludes the CRS scoring, but there still could be elements, hopefully not, but there could be elements out in the field that need to get adjusted if there were any compliance issues. I don't see there being any, but I wouldn't know, to be honest. So we're looking at probably 6 months before we get a score. But all I can say is I do feel really good about it. Eugene Cole was the CRS coordinator. He was actually like fabulous. I was kind of stressed going into it, and he was probably like the most down to earth guy, and he was so helpful, and he really helped. And we did everything great. And he called me the other day and said, you know, you got a few extra points, a few extra 100 points here that you didn't get 5 years ago. You got a few extra 100 points here that you didn't get 5 years ago. You guys are in great shape. And he pretty much said you can bank on the 15% discount again. That's the highest we can get.
Okay.
It will be interesting to see if we scored enough points to get a 20% reduction. Even if you have enough points to get a 20% reduction, you can't actually get it, because there's a requirement like you have to have something in the building code. I'm not too familiar with it, but basically everybody from the state and federal level has told me until the building code gets fixed in Massachusetts, we're locked out of getting a 20% reduction. So.
Well, thank you. Great work. That sounds promising. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of work.
No problem.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And just to put a fine point on it, it's like all of this work directly impacts a lot of people on their bills. So thanks. And one other thing that I didn't know until I started reading all the studies that you guys have been working on is, and I think you'll probably touch on this soon, but I believe we continue to be the highest town in the Commonwealth for repetitive losses. And we are the most impacted, and by far. So it's a lot of work, and so thank goodness for that work. One question, you mentioned the outreach materials that normally would be at the library. Is any of that available to people on digitally or on the website?
Yeah, I could have spoke a little more on that, but we do have a hazard mitigation website, and most of those links are on there. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we should do something to let people know that that's there, since they're not
For
going to be
sure.
browsing at the library anytime soon.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, and you mentioned, I think it'd be great if you could come back down after we get through the budget process, is to have you come in and give the Peggy to Beach overview. That would be useful.
Yeah. Awesome.
Before we go on to the next, there are questions about the floodplain report update. Any other questions? No? Okay. You did a
Great job, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very thorough. We covered it all. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
The citizens are happy. The discount really means a lot to many of them, so.
Yes, I'm one of them. Thank you.
No problem.
Great. Okay, well, we have Josh, is it Viala? Did I say it correctly?
Fiala. Yep. Fiala.
From MAPC, who was instrumental with working with the Coastal Advisory and with Kyle to create the Downtown Harbor Sustainability, Resiliency and Master Plan Update. So we'll let you highlight it. I only have 2 pages of comments, that's all. But it's a remarkable document. It really is. So if you wanted, the board should have received that as a separate document, because it is from our backup package, because it was quite large. And I'll just turn it over to you, Josh, and let you give us the overview. Oh, I think you're on mute still. You're not. Uh-oh.
It's just my microphone. Can you hear me now?
There you are. Now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Must be my headphones. I'll try to just speak up. So thank you all for having us this evening. I really appreciate the time. I'll try to be brief. I do have a brief presentation which might help with some visuals if I can just share that real quick. Just a recap of this Scituate Harbor Resiliency Master Plan process, working very closely with Kyle and a committee of task force members. Karen Connolly of your board was a part of our effort and helped us along the way. You can see many other important members of the town, all the relevant committees, boards, departments were involved. It was really a great team effort and had a lot of expertise from the town side of things involved in it from the start. So the issues I'm sure you are all well aware of along Front Street and Scituate Harbor and the district there. The business district is subject to frequent flooding. This was back a couple of years ago on Front Street. And, the concern is noted in the community as well. 32% of the community members which we surveyed as part of this process put flood risks as the main concern for Scituate Harbor, just right behind businesses, shops, and restaurants that make up the business district. They also feel that the flooding issues are very urgent. And I think, as the last major storm gets a little distant in the mirror, it's easy to think about these floods as less urgent, but I don't think that feeling is really subsiding in the community, and there is a real sense of urgency and need around this type of work, which is I think, heartening to see. The projections, both in terms of current FEMA flood zones, but also projections out with sea level rise integrated, looking out to 2038 and 2088, do continue to put the business district along Front Street at risk in that downtown harbor area. And so as part of this process, we put together a problem statement involving the task force, but also involving the committee, or the community, excuse me, that was included in the process. It was kind of open call across an online survey, but also community forums, which we held through the process. And really what people wanted was flood protection, but flood protection that also, as you made those investments, created other benefits for the district, which would enhance economic vitality, improve the public realm, strengthen the ability to gather in the district, and really increase the district as a destination for the town and beyond. So that's what we're looking at. And also at the same time with those investments, meeting the challenges that are projected for flooding in the district out to that mid-century sea level rise mark. We had a survey, a set of approaches which could be undertaken and asked the community which they thought were most appropriate. And of those, ocean fortification, so looking at some sort of solution, a heavy infrastructure solution that would occur out in the water, in the harbor itself, was something that the community started from as a preference. And then also looking at the edge of the district on that bulkhead or seawall edge, and or fortification on the land side of things as well. So we looked at those three in a little more detail. We had a pretty extensive pro and con sort of comparative analysis of those three approaches. You see some basic diagrams and some comparisons to local examples of what those different approaches would mean. And in the end, ended up across a series of metrics which relate back to the vision statement and goals for the process that were articulated with the community and the task force. The second two alternatives, B and C, actually seem to score most highly. And so in the course of this process, in light of that information, as we presented it to the community, the preference actually shifted in the community from preferring a solution which was more water-based, which would require a heavy investment in major infrastructure in at the mouth of the harbor, most likely. That preference shifted towards a more localized solution to protect the business district from flooding with improved seawall edges, bulkhead edges, and lifting those edges strategically and incrementally over time. So the whole process, which you mentioned, is in your backup materials. It has been put together and compiled in a report that I hope you're all taking a look at. And we tried to put those recommendations together in a way that was graphically understandable, but also provided enough detail to understand these concepts relative to the existing conditions of that business district water edge. So just a basic high-level summary and concept of that idea. So looking out to 2070, you can see, actually, you can maybe see very faintly, it's very faint on my screen, but there's a light blue tone that's over the map on the screen that shows the extent of the 2070 flood projection. That's with 2 feet of sea level rise. And then those yellow lines on the screen now represent the areas of the water land edge that we have a series of thoughts about the concepts in terms of how to raise those edges so that they're a better flood barrier that would protect the district. And the dotted line, which is on the water side of Front Street, would actually be a secondary system of building and temporary flood protection measures that would be less expensive to invest in. So it could be a shorter term approach, but it would also provide a backup system if that harder water side edge line was completed incrementally over time. And that's relative to the conditions of the coast today, which we looked at a planning level, not at an engineering level, but at a planning level. And all of these recommendations, in addition to being in the document which you have before you, are also available at this website, bit.ly Scituate Harbor Google Earth. And that's a more interactive web-based interface which shares the same concepts and recommendations which are outlined in the report. So this is the planning level document. I think we covered a lot of ground in terms of moving the town forward with tangible and implementable concepts. that I think Kyle is already thinking about next steps in terms of implementation activities. And one of those next steps would be thinking about pilot type projects for one of these types of investments. There are lands, of course, the Cole Parkway parcels and parking lot edges are all town owned and would be under the control of the town to pilot some of these investments that perhaps could be used as an example for some of the private coastal edge owners to also follow along with. And one of the next steps for that type of approach and procedure would be an engineering study based upon these concepts, so that you'd actually have a project that would be more shovel ready and that you could get follow on with some funding grant funding or other implementation funds that could be pursued with efforts. So I'm happy to circle back to any questions or comments that people have about this, but I will we'll stop there. That's enough for me.
Unmute. Oh my gosh, thank you, Josh. Before we turn it open, I just want to thank everybody that worked on this task force with you and Kyle and K2 for representing the board on it. It's Karen Connolly, sorry, for representing the board on this. I have to tell you, and I meant to call you, Kyle, today to talk about this because my evolution of thinking, reading the work that was done was, you came up with things that honestly, I don't think has been presented to this board in the past as far as, thinking about protecting the backside and raising Cole Parkway. I think there's so much that can be actionable and that this work obviously will dovetail very nicely into completion of the overall town master plan. So I just wanted to start by commending everybody about this. And my little planning heart soars at this sort of stuff, but I won't geek out, and I will see if the rest of the board has anything they'd like to ask before I dive into some of it. And does anybody have any questions or comments about this this report? It's a lot of information, and is it on your website so the public can look at it? Has it been put on the anywhere digitally yet, Kyle? Do you know?
Definitely should be. I think so, but let me check.
Yeah,
now.
it was probably, you had that website going during the whole plan, right?
Yeah, yep. There is actually a specific website for this plan, but I will put this plan on our website as well.
Okay, and that might be a really good thing that, maybe we put it on our Facebook page or something if people want to click to it, because there's an enormous amount of information in it that would be useful. Board, any other questions or comments on this? A lot to digest. Ms. Conley and then Ms.
Yeah, I'd just like to say the focus groups that were run were very professional. They were very engaging. They were efficient. They didn't waste a lot of time, and it's really impressive to see the report that's come out of those group meetings. Everyone from MAPC and the town did a great job. So thank you very much.
Great, Mr. Vignani.
Yeah, I was just going to add, usually when we talk about projects like this, they're just so overwhelming, you can't really even grasp it. But the fact that we took, a really finite area of town and are dealing with it makes it more manageable and actually more, in my mind, something that we can accomplish. So, so I like the way that it was laid out. I like the action plans, and I like the really scope of it. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that you thought there were some places that could be piloted. I didn't really tease that out when I read it. What could you see as sort of low hanging fruit to try out first, and then Josh?
Yeah, there's some. Like I mentioned in the initial presentation, there are the areas which are controlled by the town. So I think my mind always goes to the Cole Parkway area because I think it is a underutilized asset that the town controls. The edge could be, there are park features and amenities there already, the bandstand and the like, but that could be better. And I think as it's made better, it could be made into a resilient feature for the town as well. And then people could understand a little bit with that type of design. I think first is more of an engineered design, which would be more construction ready than our concepts. But then with that design, and particularly if that design gets then built, people could see what a resilient park for Scituate looks like. And you could have a park feature which is nicer there at that edge, but also is elevated in such a way that you've got flood protection and you don't see flooding in the corner of the parking lot at high tides. So I think those types of approaches would be great, and I think would buy the town a lot of trust in other investments that would be similar.
Great. Ms. Kern?
Great report. As always, look forward to the implementation aspect of this, and how we can prioritize and actually get some movement. Is this type of a project, elevating Cole Parkway, would that be something that a coastal zone management grant or loan would it qualify for something like that? Just trying to think of all the different funding sources, because it's a little unique, and sometimes CZM doesn't like us to fuss with the actual coast, right?
Yeah, this would definitely qualify, and there are some new grant opportunities that I think might even qualify or be more suitable. There's a new program called BRIC. I think it's building resiliency in communities or something along those lines. But basically, it's a lot more money that they're allowing, and it's a little more flexible in what's allowed than some of the CZM grants. So I've been working with David Woodbury from MEMA to just I've been just initially picking his brain on what's allowed, because I wanted to get through CRS, but he said we would be qualified to apply for a big design project in the harbor through the BRIC grant. So that's the avenue that I would like to go. But now that we're at the CRS is behind us, this is going to be, I think, the big focus for the upcoming year.
That's great. And I just think I know Rick Murray was on your committee, and I think we need to make sure that we're walking in tandem with waterways. As they continue to spend money on improvements, let's make sure that they all work together. So we're not spending $1 million on one project that won't necessarily, might get torn down, or something might happen to it a few years later as we try to, raise Cole Parkway. So I want to make sure that we're all working in tandem to do this right. But it's awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, for your help too. It's a great report, and I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more.
Josh, did you want to add something? And then Mr.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was going to offer and just make people aware of a grant program that might be suitable that MAPC is offering as well. It's called Accelerating Climate Resiliency. And for this year, that grant funding cycle just closed, but it will be a rolling cycle for next year as well. And that offers, I think for this year, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 200,000 for design of these types of projects. And that would be a design over, I think, a 2-year process. So that would be some, the type of program, I think, as well, that could get you that type of next step design that you would be looking for.
Thank you for that tip.
That's great. And I would think with an MAP sponsored report supporting that work, that would help. So Kyle, write that down.
My ears are perked up.
There you go. Mr. Goodrich, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so just kind of a question on Scituate Brook, and this is me just not knowing what agency or who. I love just the thought of this non-invasive salt tolerant vegetation building up. I know none of this is low-hanging fruit, but that seems like an easier, my gut tells me it's probably on the fiscal side less than some others. Who manage, is that waterways? Is that how does that even get started? I don't even know. Just anyone.
Josh, can you address that or?
Yeah, I think in the case that you have the Waterways Commission and your Conservation Commission, it would probably be somewhere in between, the joint effort between those two. I think they would both have some jurisdiction over that waterway. And I think so working, and they both have the expertise as well. So working with both of those entities, I think you're right. Those types of more natural-based approaches are typically more approachable and fundable than the ones which are bigger construction projects. I think there's that along the Scituate Brook, and there were some other suggestions, I think, which are similarly scaled. And some of the other ideas about the more temporary floodgate type measures might also be more approachable investments that could set you up better for the next major storm event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great, thank you. No, appreciate it. Sorry.
Great technology. And we'll have them up by tomorrow afternoon, right?
Yeah.
For those. Great. Are there any other questions? I think that we'll probably, after we digest all this information, need to follow up with Kyle and Josh, but I know that has this work been forwarded to the master plan committee as well? I know you've been working with them. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Terrific. Any other comments or questions? Presenters or board? All right, I'm just going to see if there's anyone who's watching this that is waiting that might want to have make a comment. I'd invite you to raise your hand. Oh, sorry, I did something to my screen. Raise your hand by through the participant budget button. I don't see anybody.
I just wanted to say thank you to the task force and to Josh and his team. Everybody was incredible to work with. So hopefully we can keep that momentum going. And, you know, I look forward to working with you again, Josh.
Terrific. Great. All right, then we'll conclude the discussion of the sustainability and resiliency plan for the harbor. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We have this old business, this poor orphan of financial policies. And Ms. Holt has once again graciously said that if we would like to table that, since it's 9:30 in the evening, I think we should just have a meeting on that and just get it done. But unless somebody objects, we will once again skip over financial policies for another meeting. Any objections? Nancy, I know you're heartbroken. Okay. That will bring, we do still have an executive session to go through after our new business. The new business includes the discussion vote of the annual town meeting warrant for April 12th, 2021. Lorraine and Jim sent sort of, it was a moving target, but you should have gotten the most recent version sent to you today in a separate email. Jim, can I turn it over to you to just walk us through?
I think there's actually might be a couple more since then. So let's see if I can share my screen. I can show you what I have for a list.
Okay.
There it is. Can you see that?
Nope. Oh, well, here we go.
So this is what we have. I think we had Nance 28 or 29 on the earlier one. Now we're up to 32. And I believe there's potentially one other one. Our veterans agent in 2012, there was an article passed asking for special legislation to allow for, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, an insert in the tax bills to raise money for the Veterans Assistance Fund. That legislation, from what I could see, was never filed. So the question is, can we file it now, 8 years later, or would the legislature, in order to take it as a home rule petition, require that we reauthorize that at town meeting? So we'll probably put a placeholder on that. Dawn got in touch with us late this afternoon. We'll probably put a placeholder on for that to see if that would need to go back to the town meeting or whether it can go right to the legislature. It's always been my understanding, you file a home rule petition. If it doesn't pass in that legislative session, you have to refile it. So 8 years, I think the House and Senate might say you got to reauthorize that to make sure the town still wants it. So there's a couple other placeholders on here. The number 30, revisions to floodplain section. We are under the understanding right now that we could actually address most of that through conservation rules and regulations. We have to have these new changes in place for July 1st. But if we can do it to the regulations, about 90% of it's already in our conservation regulations. If we can do it that way and the state and federal agencies say that's fine, we'll do it that way as opposed to a bylaw. Part of the reason for that is the floodplain maps haven't been finished yet. So how do we pass a bylaw to govern our floodplain maps so we don't have a map that shows us where they are? So there's a lot of stuff on here. Most of it, as you can see, we've already started putting stuff into the consent agenda. But this is what we have filed at this point, and it's just a list. Nancy, I know, has a draft warrant almost ready to go, but we're still waiting on a couple of these things. We'll get that out as soon as we finalize at least something for you to look at.
Okay, so that means that we are not going to be closing it because we're not ready to close it?
No, we're closing it. We're just going to put a 33 for veterans article. I'll just call it veterans article, but this is what we have in submitted or submitted interest. We don't have all the final language, but this is the list of everything we have. So we'll put placeholders for all these and then put the warrant together from this.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board on
What's the
warrant?
petitioner's article, Jim?
It's a water conservation to mandate water conservation and new construction, and then mandate that older multifamily, if I remember. And then older buildings would have to be retrofitted by a date certain to have all the latest conservation and water conservation measures in the construction. I just looked at it real quick.
We
Not
don't have it in our
sure.
backup yet, right?
No, we just gave you the list for tonight. We got to put all this together.
Okay.
I looked at it quick. I have some concerns about the way it's drafted, but I'll leave that to council.
It just came in, so.
Yeah, it came in today.
Yeah. Good. Karen?
Yeah, who is the petitioner?
Stephanie Burke.
Okay. And I had another question about where the genesis of the number 22, the land acquisition, it's Cowings Cove.
So
which is
that's
in Norwell.
Approached by some people from the Maxwell Trust. They have a piece of property up there that abuts land that goes into our water supply. It's something that we could actually purchase out of our operating budget because they want really a token for it. The water department thinks it's important, but we require town meeting approval to actually spend the money to do it. Otherwise, we would probably just have gone to the board and said, hey, here it is. This is what it costs us. We're paying for it. We would have purchased it. But it does abut our watershed and what goes into our watershed. So it's a nice little piece of land that they're really offering to us for very, very, very short money. And it's behind Cowings Cove. So Cowings Cove is actually in Norwell, but the backside of it is in Scituate.
CPC was approached to buy that property 5 years ago and declined. It is in Norwell, and it does include a retention pond. So question is, why doesn't Norwell buy it?
Because it doesn't impact their water supply.
Well, all right.
We can have more of a discussion, but Norwell's not going to buy property to protect our water supply.
Well, we bought land to protect Cohasset's water supply.
Yep.
Jim, we see your email.
Oh, sorry. Nancy just sent me an email. I'm like, what is she sending me now? Is this back up the list?
You're good. You're good. No, it's
No.
oh.
So
It's okay. Are there any other questions about the proposed warrant?
Just a quick one. Jim, whose is article number 20?
I believe that's from the assessor's office.
Okay.
I looked it up, Tony. I haven't spent, to be honest with you, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at these. We just try to get the list together. I did look it up. It's kind of a technical thing.
I don't need the details. I just didn't know who it was.
Yeah,
We'll
but
go over it.
I think it came out of the assessor's office.
It's me.
It's Nancy? Okay. Okay. Great. So we do need to have a vote to close this. If there's no further discussion, oh crap, sorry. I don't know how my computer works. There's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen close the warrant for the spring annual and special town meeting to be held on April 12th, 2021.
Moved by Ms. Curran, seconded by
Second,
Ms. Connolly. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yep, yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
That is 5-0, including one yep, and the motion passes. The next is a discussion vote of the annual 2021 license renewals. It's a long list, and and just to remind everybody, their signatures will be required on all approved licenses, and there's a stack of them tomorrow. So, is there any discussion about these are the licenses that are up for renewal? They've all passed inspections by the fire, police, building, and Board of Health, and are up to date on their personal and real estate taxes. All required documentation has been received and is on file at the Selectmen's office. This is a routine matter that we must do every year. If anyone have any comments or questions about the list before us. I see none, which means then I believe, unless I'm wrong, we can move there's three motions to be made. I think we can combine them unless anyone has an objection to one vote. And I will task our intrepid clerk if she would like to consider making that motion.
Yeah, typically, we do a vote for each category, and then we can do one roll call vote for all of them.
A motion for each category and seconded, and then one roll call at the end. Is that what you just recommended?
Yes.
Okay. All right, madam.
This is a lot less than last time.
Absolutely.
Right. This is the end of it.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to renew the following common victualler licenses for 2021. Ward 143, Crust Pizzeria, Dribbles, Gunther Tooties, Hibernian Tavern, Inn at Scituate Harbor, Nona's Ice Cream, Ronnie Shones, Salt Society, Sam's on the Harbor, The Galley.
Motion by Ms. Connolly, second by Ms. Curran. Can I have a motion for the second? The second motion?
You need a second, right?
We're gonna, Mara already.
Oh, you want me to read the second
Read
motion?
the
I thought you
second
were
motion, yeah.
The second motion. Never mind. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to renew the following entertainment licenses for 2021. I hope we can have entertainment. Hibernian Tavern, Restaurant Oro, Salt Society.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Curran, and may I ask for the third motion?
Yes, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to renew the following Class 2 licenses for 2021. Driftway Auto, Larry A. Finney, and McBrien's Diagnostic Repair.
Moved by Ms. Connolly, seconded by
Second.
Ms. Curran. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we will do a roll call vote on all three motions.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great, the motion carries. The last item under new business is to discuss board and committee appointments. One thing we neglected to do was ask our applicant if she was interested in serving in both committees, which was an oversight. We, I think, have the option of considering her for both. What do you guys think?
Still on, Karen, if you want to ask Kelly if she's interested.
She's still. Oh, yay, Kelly. I didn't realize you were still hanging out with us. Could I ask you to join us, because you are potentially available for two committees, but, oh, there you are. Hey, you're still muted. Hold on.
Alexa, stop.
I apologize, I realized after, and Lorraine pointed out that we didn't ask you that important question is, there are two committees open, and did you have a preference? Would you want to serve on both?
Alexa, stop.
I guess if I had to express a preference, it would be for the beach committee, but I'm absolutely willing to do whatever I can to help.
Okay. All right. And Ms. Curran did point out that, with beautification, you can always volunteer to do. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'm glad you're still with us.
No worries. Thank you.
All right. Now we're going to talk about you. So we have an applicant for Beach Commission and beautification. She's expressed an interest, a preference for the Beach Commission, which is open. It is a great group. Is there any discussion about this opening? Does anyone, or would anyone care to make a motion on this? Everyone's quiet tonight.
I think should be a
I'd make a motion. I can't find it.
Oh, oh, you know what? It was sent separately.
Yeah, I emailed it to you before the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it late. It was a late.
Yeah,
I can
have
wing
it.
it unless somebody actually has it.
I have
I
it.
think, okay.
One sec. Okay, sorry. I wasn't sure if I was unmuted. Okey doke. I thought I had it. Move
I've got it.
to appoint Kelly Bauer to the Scituate Beach Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the Conflict of Interest Law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Moved by Ms. Curran. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Vignani. Is there any further discussion? Did she jump back yet? No, okay. This requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes,
Ms. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great, the motion passes 5-0. Welcome aboard. Thank you for sticking all night with us and for raising your hand to volunteer. So Lorraine will send you the information about how, just the process of getting onboarded.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank
Glad
you.
to be part of it.
Great. All
Is it
right,
okay to go now? Is that
you're
everything?
free to go.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
All right, good night. Our other business, does anyone have a liaison report? We lost, who did we lose? Tony. Oh, there he is. I just wanted to give a heads up to the board. It's not really a liaison, but I would like to put the revisit of the wind turbine discussion on our January 5th meeting, which is our next meeting. I just want to give you a heads up and try to get you any material that is needed ahead of time on that. That's all I had. Anybody else have a liaison? Okay, seeing none. Go on to correspondence. Madam Clerk, is there
Yes,
correspondence?
we just have one piece of correspondence that was dated 12/2/20, and it was from Plymouth Cares, the municipal disbursements, and Scituate to date, as of that date, had received $1,245,352.73. And other than Brockton, that was among one of the higher communities. Marshfield just sort of leapfrogged over us from the last time, but it's a significant amount of money. So thank you to the town hall for applying for those disbursements. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. We have meeting minutes to approve. From, I don't have the date in front of me.
I have it.
Move to accept the meeting minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting held on December 1st, 2020.
Yeah, I would just, I'm sorry, I would like to, there was a thing that needed to be corrected, and I'm trying to find my notes. I have too many notes from tonight. It's just in the voting, the long list of voting for licenses. There's a couple of errors where it said that the vote was 5-0 and that either Tony or I had abstained. That just needs to be cleaned up.
Yes, I saw that and fixed it, but thank you.
So I would amend the approval to correcting those mistakes. So is that so moved, Ms. Curran?
Yeah, move to accept the meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting held on December 1st with the adjustments identified by Chairman Canfield and confirmed by Ms. Devon.
Moved by Ms. Kern. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, there's a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great. The motion carries 5-0.
Sorry, Lorraine, I meant Mrs.
That's okay. No problem.
Okay, so that concludes our.
Sorry, we have the executive session minutes to approve from the last
Oh,
meeting
yes.
as well.
Yes, we do. Is there a motion on those?
Move to accept and not release the executive session minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting held on December 1st, 2020, since the matter discussed is still pending at this time.
Moved by Ms. Conley, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Vignani. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Great. That then concludes our regular scheduled programming. We will, I'm going to say the magic words to go into executive session, which will be closed to the public. But before we do, I just want to thank I do have a question. Jim, I believe the attorney for one of the matters that we'll be discussing in executive session is on the call. Oh, hi Kathleen. Do we invite her into the session? I'm not sure how that is to be handled. So before we
The board
close.
determines who participates in an executive session.
Okay.
So if you believe that there is a reason for her to be in the executive session, then you can let her in. If the board wants to have a discussion on this by themselves, then the board should have a discussion by themselves. But it is up to you who you allow into executive session.
Okay. I would certainly like to hear Attorney O'Donnell's. We on that matter, we had late documentation today, so it might be useful for the board to hear from her what is being presented to us, and then we may invite you to leave for our deliberation. Does that work for the board?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know. Yes.
Madam Chair, perhaps we could meet first before we invite the attorney in and then invite her in.
Okay, I'm just wondering technology wise, how we can do that.
I can put her in the waiting room. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yay. The man behind the curtain says that works. I was afraid the technology wouldn't work. Okay, so we will throw you into limbo and bring you in after we have a brief discussion. All right, does that work? We all have the rules now? Okay. In that case, I will say to the general public, let me find the words, magic words. I wish everybody a happy holiday. Please follow the CDC guidelines so that we don't have to close up our town again. And I would say that the chair declares that the Board of Selectmen move into an executive session pursuant to purpose 6 of open meeting law to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real properties known as 143 Border and 443 through 461 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. And I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the Board of Selectmen in connection with this matter. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Kern, or Ms. Connolly, sorry.
Karen, you should do amend at the end that we will not be returning to open session.
I always forget to do that. And I would like to announce that we will not be moving into returning to open session. That motion is heard and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, that requires a roll call vote.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes.
Mr. Vignani,
Yes.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Karen,
Yes.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to let the wizard